Test, test. What's happening?
I'm sorry. I'm good. He's the one on our.
What's that?
We're the third.
Oh, yeah. We don't have to be here for 2 more days.
You're the third.
Good, good. Staying busy. Unbelievable busy, yeah. It's like Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesdays are no different than Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sundays. Mm. All right, let's go ahead and get started.
Something about having a 341 doctor appointment or whatever.
Yeah. Damn. That's all. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Council Member Morganelli.
Here.
Council Member Hartle. Vice Mayor Womack.
Here.
Mayor Wynkoop.
Here. Alrighty. Alan, you want to do our prayer first? Thank you.
Will you join me for a moment of prayer here? Dear Lord Jesus, thank you for the rain we received these last couple of weeks. It's been a blessing to our town, our area, our fire department. I'm sure they're appreciating it tremendously. We ask that tonight you'll be with us as a corporate body of representatives of the town to do the business of the town. We ask that the residents of our town, those who have unspoken needs that we never sometimes hear about, will not feel like they're out in the dark, and that they have a person and a deity that can answer questions and help them, and they have friends and neighbors in our town, of our small town, that reach out to each others. I ask for just a great night tonight, that we can discuss things that we need to discuss and go on from there. Thank you for giving us a town that we have, the residents of our town, whether we agree or disagree all the time, but it's nice to live in a town that really does feel like home, and we thank you for that in thy name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much. Alrighty. Let's go ahead and get this show on the road. I'm going to go ahead and take this, Paul, discussion on the purpose of
Sure.
staff and council reports.
Sure. Thank you, council. Just as you can tell by this meeting, we're just going to have just some general discussion items and just go over some topics and just to try to help things run smoother for both staff and council level. The first one I just want to talk about is the discussion of purpose of the staff and council reports. This is something that the staff reports and council reports is something I started roughly about 5 years ago with council, and the purpose of those reports was you as a council to share information that you've obtained or meetings you went to kind of let the public know and let your other council members, for instance, hey, I attended the MPO meeting, here's the information, here's what's going on. Hey, I had a meet and greet, here's some of the feedback I got, some of the things. Lately, and this is not negative, I'm not saying negative, but what they've turned into is, as you have a list of things that are problems in town, that's where they're getting brought up. Hey, there's a grass is high here, there's a tree high here. What I would ask council to do, as you get those concerns from our customers and our citizens, text me with those or call the front hall desk so we can take care of those before the meeting. Because what I would rather have is to report on those to you than have a list of concerns or problems. And it's not all the things, but we want to take care of those things as soon as you guys hear about them, or at least get them on the schedule, because as you'll see later tonight, sometimes some things, it does take some time to get to. But I also want that time for you to share the information of what you're doing as a leader in the community. And also, if you haven't gone, if you haven't been to the MPO or FLC conference, if you saw something good in the community, take that time to share what's positive about the community. I will say, I could kind of tell on staff, the staff does appreciate it when you guys notice something they do and you take the opportunity. At the last meeting, we had our 100-year celebration and our town picnic in a butterfly garden. There really wasn't one comment from any council member. And what I'd like to do is, if you don't have those reports, take those opportunities to celebrate something good you did at those meets, so we can share that with our community. And that's all. It's nothing. It's not a criticism. I just would like to make sure if you have concerns that I'm addressing those sooner than a meeting once or twice a month. If that's completely now your council, you can do whatever you want. I recognize that, but that is just the request, and that was the purpose of putting those in originally. And please feel free if there's something that you had on the list, because sometimes things do take time to get done depending on where it is. During my report, you can ask, hey, Paul, can you give me an update on what's going on about getting this sign fixed over here? I just noticed it. Or reach out to me personally first if you can. I'll try to give you an update, and that way you can report on it. That's all. I appreciate any thoughts or comments you have on that, but otherwise I just want to bring that up.
Okay, great. Anybody want to add to that?
Yeah, I'm going to just use my time like I've been for what I feel I need to discuss at that time. I appreciate it. I appreciate your thoughts, but
Yep, no problem.
I still think we need to address issues when they come up, and I think you'll see that as we go through the agenda tonight as well, that we do need to have more discussions. But
address issues as they come up, but maybe my interpretation of what Paul just said was wrong. If something comes up prior, if we get a concern prior to a council meeting, to go ahead and text him prior to the meeting, is that the correct interpretation?
Yeah, well, I think the main thing I'm getting at is if there's a sign down or there's a tree in the way, those are things that we need to kind of move our staff meeting or our council meetings along. Give me the opportunity to at least get that on the schedule and get that working when you hear about it. And again, sometimes you hear about those a week or two ahead, just shoot me a text on those, and that way those could get, and I'm not differentiating if you got issues as a council, hey council, I really would like to see that we need to work on this. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm just more talking about just your normal things you get from the citizens. Hey,
Yep.
could you look into this? Can you look into that? You guys, I'm available to you 24/7, as you know. Everybody has talked to me 24/7 at some point here, so please reach out to me. I want to serve our citizens better and make sure that when the complaints get to you, it's not waiting a week or two even for you to give them a response. That I want you to be able to say, hey, I'll let the manager know. He's aware of it, and you can always follow up with me in a week or so if you didn't see it done and see where it's at in the schedule. So I think it helps you guys represent your constituents better when you get the information to me quicker. Is all I'm getting.
I agree with that. I'm going to bring up a current issue. I think all the other council members received an email this past weekend after hours. I think it was like on Sunday or something. I got an email about a code problem with not so much a code problem, but they're trying to do a project and they're getting A side, B side. It's kind of like the 11th hour. How can we address that? I mean, I personally will call you and say, hey, Paul, were you aware of this? And it's like, yeah, this is an ongoing problem. where is the line, like where we have code enforcement, like on 9th Street? I'll give that as an example, where the council said, hey, you can do this, and the person decided to do this and this and this. And then it came back and you had to do a stop work order on them. How do we address those things without crossing the line? They haven't had due process either through the process of, hey, we did this right, no, you didn't, back and forth. How do we resolve that before we come to council? Because we've done it in the past, I personally have, where you've said, hey, this is, I'll tell you this is ongoing, we don't need to bring it up and kind of stir the pot, but it is a process. How do we address that?
Sure. When something ends up in code enforcement, you can always ask for an update again on where that's at. I could only give you general information. I can't go into detail because that becomes a quasi-judicial, and under our code, and I'll let Anita correct me if I'm completely saying this wrong, but under our code, part of that quasi-judicial is you're the final appeal process. So you kind of spoil the pot, honestly, if I give you too much details in order for them to have a fair hearing down the road. So I've got to be careful with that you recognize that's how the council has decided to handle appeals. Did I say that okay, Anita, when it comes to code cases?
Correct. You are the appellate board, and you get final say. So it's a better process if council does not get involved. And if you get a complaint from someone, obviously pass it along.
Right. But
not to get involved in the details.
Well, I learned a long time ago, long time ago, from a retired judge, and when Anita, you'll attest to it, there's three sides, your side, my side, and the truth. And we sometimes from residents, oh, they're just, and you get this, and it's like, oh, that must be the truth.
Nope.
No, sometimes we get into it, and that's the furthest thing from the truth. But personally, I can't speak for the others, but I always say, well, I'll look into it, but I won't give you an answer because that's not my field of expertise.
Well, I can always give you some general information to get back of where it's at in the process and kind of the status when it's related to a code case. I just, I could give you what the complaints are. That's against the person. So I could give you the general information. That's public information, so that's fine. And there are some process. In fact, Councilman Womack asked me about a permitting issue that may have arisen, and I don't have the answer for that, but I'm going to look into that for her and get back with her. And it's good that you bring those to our attention early again, so they don't wait long, because there have been times, and there will be times where the problem is somehow it got lost in staff, or in the process something got missed. We on a permitting thing, it could go up to 5 different people it goes out to, different contractors, from legal to planning, which it could be multiple people in the planning, to engineering, to the building inspector, through the permitting process, and sometimes through me. So that's just 6 off the top of my head, just kind of going through. And some stuff has to, be looked at by St. John's, DEP. There's a lot of processes, and there's a lot of opportunities. Sometimes things do get stuck, and if people don't bring it to our attention, sometimes we don't get that. But we try to stay on top of it, and that's one of the things we're
And I know
working on.
as a council, I'll speak as a council, how many times have we gotten a call or something Monday before Tuesday, and they're expecting you to get an answer for it because they're going to bring it for council, and you're going, you've been on this for 2 months, and now all of a sudden, last 11th hour, 59 minute, you want, hey, you're my councilman, respond to this and fix it, and it doesn't work that way. So.
And sometimes I may have the answer for you. As you know, if they're reaching out to you, they probably have worked through some of the staff and already know what some of the issues are, and could give you at least a summary of what's going on with those as well. And obviously there's always stuff around permitting, it always seems to be, and where we really run into is because we allow for self-building permits, and we don't require engineering designs, which we could require engineering designs on everything, but being a small town, we try not to get too carried away. But that creates a whole host of problems, because when you draw it on the back of a napkin, you're forgetting, you get A, B, and C, but you're forgetting the rest of the alphabet. It has to be done, and that's leads to problems.
And of course, everybody wants yes. No one believes no is an answer. So, yeah, that was my take. So,
Yep, no problem.
So, a question
Joe's smiling, so I know he's a little experience with that.
You had mentioned the permitting question earlier. Is that on I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page as to I don't want to mention the person's name. I'm trying to think of the best way to explain it. She and her husband were in the process of building an ADU. Is that the same person, or okay? because I did speak with her, and one of the issues that came up was that she was placing emails and calls, I'm going backwards here, sending emails and placing calls for the past 2 weeks with no response. So that's that's why, like, for example, that's some of the reasons why I have brought things up in the past, is because residents are reaching out. It's not just her, there's other residents as well that have reached out, where they send emails and they make calls and they go unanswered.
Yeah, and I could categorically say that's untrue, because I know Patty has already talked to me about that, if that particular case, that's the same one 2 or 3 times about it, and I told her how she needs to send the email out to respond to it, so I assume it's gotten out, but I know she's talked to her on the phone, because she brought it to me because they called her and talked to her on the phone about it. So, I mean, there has been communication. To say there's been none, and I think the situation honestly came up late last week, is when the situation came up, and so I got back in Monday. It's when Patty talked to me about it. There may be some, waiting for me, may possibly to get with me to get some more information to get to her. But, and honestly, sometimes you got to realize sometimes building permit questions do take a couple of weeks to get an answer because it has to go through a review process. Sometimes we can't give instant answers, and it states that clearly on the application.
That's never been my argument, is getting instant answers. It's getting an answer, even if it's just, hey, received it. It's going to give us 4 or 5 days to get back to you. That's always been my thing. I get it. You can't give an instant answer to every resident. I mean, that's unrealistic, and that would be an unrealistic goal to set on you as well as your staff. But it's as far as some response back.
Yeah, I mean, I will, again, I just heard of the situation. I will check them with Patty and see. Obviously, the fact that she said there's been no communication cannot be fully true, because Patty came, so she's called, she was upset. Patty was upset about the call, so there's been communication going on. I just don't know the full, details of it. And again, this was, I think, a self kind of built kind of project, and so the upsetness is, there was a piece of it was missed related to their septic tank, is what I understand, and they have to go get a septic permit because that's required. It's
Right, and Patty had responded to her that it wasn't on her checklist
so Patty did respond to her
in the past,
Yeah,
yes.
and
which is
honestly,
what's
it's
now-
probably something planning. It state statute, they have to get the DEP permit, so in theory the permit's been held, but it should have been put on the actual planning zoning clearance on that one. So that was probably missed.
My understanding was,
part.
like you said, she sat and she went through the process, and if you had spoken with her, let me know, please clarify. But my understanding was she spoke with, or I don't know if she sat with Patty, but there was a discussion that took place. She received what she had to do, went in, her and her husband went and did it, and then came back to find that they had to do the enhanced septic, which, as we know, we've already discussed that one, which, of course, that's much more expensive, but she didn't know that, and according to what she had said to me, was that Patty's response was that she didn't know because it wasn't on her checklist to that extent. So.
Again, I don't have the information to comment. I could get that in and get back with you. Again, we kind of run these problems when people do self-contracting themselves, because obviously if it was an engineer at a contractor, they go through the processes, and so it's usually when we have these hiccups, honestly, is where we get that. So our issue is that we've had this debate of planning. We could create a checklist of everything you could do, and we have these permits that are going to be 10 pages long, and people are having struggling reading the page and a half to 2 pages we send out. So it is a struggle that we do, especially with the self-permitting. And I know Nita, we've had this conversation a couple times about, how do we do that? How do we handle that pitfall of trying to stay small town? Because I think people are building here, they've done stuff themselves and had engineers come through, and
It appears that the process is where most of the problems occur.
I would agree. Yeah.
Either not being clear in explaining it, or not being clear in understanding it, somewhere in between. So, and I don't know our permitting process. I haven't had to go through it, so I am completely unfamiliar with it. But if I were a resident and I was going to put in a shed, first it probably wouldn't even cross my mind that I would need a permit to do it to start with. But then if I did need a permit, I would come over here and I'd say, hey, I'm putting in this shed. Where's the permit for it? Is there any information that I should supply you in the size of that shed, the location of that shed, anything like that, on any information that I, as a resident, I'm required to fill out.
Yeah, all that information as you go through the process, the general information is on the checklist of you have to fill out a site plan, you have to show, it says on there, show in detail, show the setbacks. So yes, that information is on there. When you get into like accessory dwelling unit where you're building a house, and what we run into a lot is people come in, well, can I do this? Should I do this? Should I do that? And we get in that situation where we're like, we can't tell you how to submit this or how to build it or what to do. All we can do is review what you turn in. Until we get what you review, we turn in what's reviewed. And, you know, occasionally some things are missed in review. I mean, we get that. That's, you know, that happens everywhere. Some things get missed and sometimes we have to bring it on the back end. But our job is to review the application. Our job is not to necessarily tell them how to do it or which way to do it, because that opens the town, I think, for some liability and also some more upsetness down the road. So it's a tough balance to do that. But that information, you know, you guys approve, hey, here's shed setbacks. We just did that. And so we have them turn in a site plan that has those setbacks. But if you go to our land development code, it's pages and pages depending on what you're building, because there's not a quick answer to a shed. It could be, I'm putting a 2020 bit shed and it has a garage door and that's all it is. Well, then you got the Florida building code, the 150-mile-an-hour wind. You have the foundation of what's required. You have to have at least a civil print, depending on what the size of it is. So once you jump to a certain size, it changes what the code is. If you decide to put a bathroom or electrical in there, that starts a whole nother permit process and stuff that has to go through. And a lot of this is state mandated. So it's hard to just say a checklist for, you know, this is what is shed, because a shed can turn into be 1,000 different things and require a different level of review. And so that, and again, most of the architects and engineers that, you know, spend their life getting their, you know, education to do that, they understand, they turn that in what needs to be in, and still we have a page or two of comments. Then you have citizens turning in, here's, you know, I'm going to be the self-contractor, tell me everything I need to do. That's kind of hard to do. We have to review what you turn in.
So in other words, we're a big government federal agency called Social Security. You can ask me a question, but I can't tell you what to do, right?
Yeah.
Got it.
I mean, I think anybody here, we always try to work. I mean, I think Mr. Roberts is here. We try to work with to get you through the process and do things. I think we go, you know, I've been on that other end of the stick and I hated it, you know, because I've been 10 times worse than anything I think anybody would experience here, where it's just like cone still facing, you get a 5-page report back and it's like, what is that? You know, and you have these meetings. We always try to assist where we can. I mean, I think we do a good job on that, but let me look into that scenario. I don't know all the details of it. I just got, again, the end of that, so.
Well, I mean, excuse me, just for clarification, my suggestion was, and correct me for legal reasons if I'm wrong. Technically, I don't believe that the council can take action on any item unless the item is presented in an official manner before the council. So my advice was, if you can do it, show up at the council meeting and state your case, present your case. And at that point, you know, having heads up from this resident gives me an opportunity to say, okay, you know, what does the town have? You know, I have an idea of what the information they have, but I don't know what our correspondence has been. So now that gives me, between now and next Tuesday, to get with you and staff and say, all right, where's the hiccup? What happened? What's this side of the story?
And I would offer an interim solution, which would be, instead of having them come and voice it at the council meeting, where we really can't give them answers anyway, I would suggest that you ask them to schedule a meeting with the town manager.
Well, that request, again, and this is according to the information that I was given by the resident, that request was made.
And ignored.
Well, I can say the request was made.
Okay.
You know.
I had further discussion with her, so
Yeah, and it's possible the request is.
It didn't happen. I know that, but I can't say why. So I will leave that part blank.
And again, I'll get with Patty, and she has a folder for me to go through. But I've been gone the last 2 weeks, so naturally I haven't had any meetings. And since I've been back, all I've been doing is prepping for next week's meeting and this meeting, and plus attended a county meeting. So, you know, I'm, you know, we can have to 2 weeks out for meetings anyway, but,
Right.
you know, I mean, Patty does have a folder of questions she started with, you know. We probably spent an hour here in the last day going through a couple of the things, getting stuff out, and that may be in there possibly. I don't know that because I haven't had the request come to me, or she didn't email me directly and ask me for a meeting, so.
I'm not going to steal the mayor's thunder, but I apologize if I do, Mr. Mayor, but our discussion is staff and council reports, and I think this comes under item C, where we can do past and current levels of service. Will come in on this one. But as to the staff and council, I agree that from my point of view, if we see something we need to maybe I'm guilty of it myself, so I'll set myself up, see things, hear things. You run into people and say, hey, did you know that there's a such and such, or this lights are out? No, I'm not up at 3 o'clock in the morning driving through the town. Which brings me to another thing, and this has been a concern of mine. Our patrol staff is a fantastic thing, and I commend us that we did it as a town, but they're another set of eyes and ears that I don't think the council utilizes enough, and I would almost, this is going back to our agenda stuff under Part B, I'd love to have a report from them, not to be, they have to, at 12:37 I saw, 3 cats in a fight or something like that, but the things that they see that we don't see, they're a value, I consider them a value asset to our town, because our law enforcement can't be everywhere, Paul and public service can't be everywhere. If they see things, I would like to hear from them, or someone report, hey, this, just bring it to us, bring it to staff more so, but I would like to be able to see some kind of a report from them, not to force somebody on there to go, hey, I got to do a report, what did we do this past month? That's nice, but I don't want it to be that way. But things that need to be brought that we don't hear about, there are eyes and ears behind Chuck and his staff and you too. So,
Sure. I think honestly Dan Davis is the only one doing our patrols nowadays, so in limited. All right, so I'll look into that. When did you guys hear about that issue? Could I ask?
I
Just-
think
Sunday at
the-
1:26,
Yeah.
I got an
Okay.
email.
So, again, if you could have reached out to me, I could have probably had an answer and maybe had it taken care of before the meeting. So I think that's a perfect example. Hey, there's a concerned citizen, because we're making that citizen wait another 2 days to maybe something that's going to even make them more frustrated. And, it'll
Well,
be
I told them to
tomorrow.
wait for a council meeting, so I'm sure they're real frustrated, yeah.
Yeah, so that's just an example is, it doesn't have to be like, hey, I got this thing and someone's upset. It's like, bring it to me, let's see what it is, because, obviously I work for the council and I want to get stuff done. I want to have an efficient government. That's my goal. It always is. We strive and try for that, and we're in a heightened area of development like this town has never seen, ever. And probably will never see after the next couple of years, be done. And, there's a lot going on. And so, and we may be completely at fault. We are, then obviously I will call and apologize to her if that's the case. It may be something in the middle where there's some miscommunication and there's some stuff she did. And, and when, I hear that she hasn't talked to any staff, then we just heard, well, she talked to Patty and did this. So it's like, which one is it? So there's been some communication, obviously. I just don't know what that communication is. But we're good on that?
Just to butt in on it, and I respect everything you say, Anita, but there's some subjects that I feel the resident has to come in and talk about.
I agree.
And that's my job to say, okay, on this topic you need to come and talk to the council. And then there's other things that don't need to happen like that. And I usually text Paul and say, hey, can you look into this? And then I put it in my calendar next week to ask him about that subject. And I follow up on it to see if it got done or what happened with it so I can answer any questions. But that's kind of where I'm at with the 2 different things that happened. And I've been doing it a little while, so I got halfway decent at it.
Yeah.
I think that's Joe, I think that's in respect to you, out of respect to you, that's been the job, seen or unseen, of the mayor, is to be the kind of the liaison of the town, and you do a very good job of that. And like you said, there's a lot of things that they don't need to get quagmire down, and others that, yeah, that's a priority that need to be So,
And you got experience. You guys could all make that call. And I think that's something that you should talk to the council about. We do a section where we talk about things that aren't on the agenda. That's your time to just come up and talk to the council about it. But you don't want him to come up and talk about his cat getting run over, you know, something like that.
And there's definitely topics that's not appropriate to go, this person has an issue. Obviously, I'm the only one that could really get in to fix the issue. If she even came to council, or as Anita said, I'm going to say I'm going to have to look into it and get back to you. And I want to fix the issue sooner than later. So, I mean, that's just an example. But also, then there's time where, hey, I really, as Mayor says, hey, come talk to council. And sometimes the concern is just a more overlying concern. It's public safety. It's this and that. And, I'm not the answer. The council's the answer for those kind of things. And Mayor, good example, 2 days ago, you sent me a text about the tree over on Lakeside. A limb fell off. He's like, hey, can you look in getting this taken care of? It's dangerous. And I was able to respond back, yes, there's a crew hired. It's part of the road crew. It should be hopefully out of there in the next week or two. So it's scheduled to be done. So I was able to provide that response pretty quickly to that. So.
And thank you for moving the sign.
Oh, you're welcome. And that's another, so, please let me, my job, at the end of the day, I really strive. I want to make sure you guys, as a council, that you guys are successful in what you do, that you represent your constituents. I see that as a part of my job as running the city, but I also, serve you as a council, and I want to make your jobs easier, and I want you to make sure you're seeing your things get done that are important to you. Now, some things obviously require, approval by 3 votes to get there, but with that said, I always strive to try to get there for you guys.
well, I want to go on record as a councilman that I never want to micromanage my town staff or my town manager, because I've seen that go not well for the community and for the residents or anybody on the council. That's not our job. We entrust you and staff. We believe you, and if you don't, then we make changes accordingly. But that kind of makes me stay up at night thinking, because I've seen local communities, we've got some close to us that have just, they can't keep attorneys, they can't keep town staff, they can't keep managers, everybody's in an uproar, and the bottom line, nothing gets done, and that's not our job, to protect our town and our residents. So we'll try to improve.
Just one more question on the whole permitting thing.
Uh-huh.
I like you said, for the legal reasons, there's only so much we can help with. We're extremely limited in helping them fill out an application. We are a little better at answering questions, all right? But is there a website, phone number, something that, from the resident standpoint, that hey, if you have questions about this, you can call this organization, or you can call this department with the state of Florida, or blah, blah, blah. Or we just pretty much say, here's the permit, here's kind of sort of how you fill it out, or whatever it happens to be. Here's how you fill it out. Yeah, okay, you got any questions? No, I'm good. All right, thanks, have a great day. Boom. And out the door they go. You get home, you fill it out, and you're like, what does this mean? Well, I don't understand that. Hello, Webster's Dictionary, please explain.
Yeah, I mean, generally, most of the questions or answers or stuff we handle internally, and if it's something they need to reach out, I know staff has given out a phone number in the past. I mean, we don't get a lot of those requests nowadays. Everybody Googles, I need to get a hold of whatever, and they get there. But, we occasionally, people do call us and we give outside phone numbers, but.
Find a way to make the process easier, and it's a difficult process to start with, so there's probably not much to streamlining or to make it easier, but.
Yeah, I mean, building permit processes, I mean, they're especially if you don't do it regularly, they're not necessarily easy. I mean, there's a lot of land development codes. If you think of all the stuff you've done, you have height restrictions, you have setbacks, we have materials if you're in certain codes, and it all depends on if you're in R1, R2, R3. So all that stuff has to be looked at, and we can't necessarily draw it out for them. We obviously don't have the resources, but that's kind of not our job as the town, is to do the review. Then you got the whole Florida building code. That's I think Florida has outside of California, has one of the strictest building codes in the United States. And there's I kind of scratch my head at some of the stuff we've done in that library. It's like, wow, talk about overkill. But,
I'll keep thinking on that one.
but yeah, let's keep that discussion open, and we'll.
Again, I get it. If they reach out to staff and they reach out to you, and there's a response, that's fine. But again, I encourage residents to reach out to council. I'm never going to say not to do that, because at the end of the day, the buck stops with us. If this email is that way, this means we're failing our residents. I mean, I'm being honest. This falls on us. We're the ones up here, and we are the ones that have the power to make change. Whether it is, like you had mentioned, update policies, we have to direct Paul to do that. That's on us. And again, I do want to find more information out, but I'm just saying, like, if a resident does reach out to staff and to staff, and then there's no response, we're the last person to reach out to. I mean,
What was that email? I don't remember seeing it.
Yeah, it was Sunday. You know, myself personally, I don't take anything on face value till I feel like that I have seen everything there is surrounding this particular issue or whatever the issue is. So, I can't go so far as to say there was no response. I know that a meeting was asked for and a meeting did not happen. That much I'm sure of.
Sure. And again, I don't even know what the
But
issue is, really. I mean, I'm kind of guessing.
And
but
again, the email that we all received was the first I heard of it. All right, so again, starting at ground zero and having nothing more than that to go on. That's opened the door, but I need to see more information. How, which I will get from you guys. What was the paperwork that they first, the application they first filled out? Was that correct? Okay, then what happened next? Was that correct? And see where the breakdown in the process was, and try to amend from that point.
Oh, and I agree. And please don't mistake, Emily. I'm not saying if, obviously a citizen has a legitimate concern, there was something in the process, she's not happy how the process went. There's, I don't know what the whole story is, but I'm saying that's appropriate to come to council, but it's also appropriate when you hear about it. Again, it would be nice if I could have came here and fill you in of, hey, here's what I know. Yes, there was a breakdown here. No, there wasn't a breakdown. It's on my list to do. I mean, it's possible I still have an email in there. I haven't got through all the emails since I've been back from vacation. Maybe there is an email for a meeting request in there.
I will take my share of responsibility in that, because when I saw the email, it's like, okay, I need to see the other side of the coin. What happened on our side? It was Sunday. I considered right then and there, sending you a text.
Please do. Yeah, it's fine.
But I'm like, all right, I know I'm going to see you on Tuesday. I'll let it sit till then. So that's on me. But going forward, I will be more prompt in reaching and getting, because the sooner I get it to you, the sooner the information comes to me.
Yeah, and ultimately, I think that's everybody's goal. There's someone's upset about something, and we want to try to get it resolved quicker and sooner. So, both actions in this case is probably appropriate. Get a hold of me as soon as you can. Let me look into it. Let me see what we can do to get resolved, and bring it up, and I can report to you of where the issue was, or so I don't know if it's a breakdown in the permitting process, or a breakdown in the communication process, or all the above, or maybe there's not as much breakdown as we all think it is. Again,
Well, can you go ahead and look into that one and
Of
let us
course I will,
know?
yes.
Hey,
This
Joe?
one's just going round and round now.
Yeah. Joe, before Paul was here, we had a situation when Brenda Brasher was here. Remember that thing with the academy? And every email that was sent was documented. Do we still internally somehow, hey, I got a phone call, 37 seconds? I mean,
Yeah.
because that was a lifesaver for us. I mean, we
Yeah.
sent this, and you guys.
What happened was we had a back and forth with the school on the house that they built a pool and then cemented it all back to the property line, and the school person had their version of it, and I had all the emails and had gotten them to all these folks before the meeting. They read them, they were up to date, and there was no discussion because what they were saying wasn't working out for them. And these guys knew it because they were all up. Well, you guys weren't on it, but me and Alan were, and the other three people knew it. So, we're looking at them saying, that's not what we're reading here on our emails. So tell me what I'm missing. I don't know if you remember that, but it went really smooth. It was a lot of work to put it all together, but that was the only way to handle that one. And that's the only one I knew how to handle it. But we can move on. Let's move on. I think we
I have
we
one
got
more
it.
request for
Sure.
discussion item. On a monthly basis, are we able to get a report on the law enforcement activities as far as arrests, pullovers? I'd like to see it broken down by officer and everything to sort of justify, because I know we have budget coming up soon. I'd like to look and see as far as, is that something that we want to continue to do or not do? Or budget
I
up
mean,
or
I
budget
can
down
with
for
the
that?
highway patrol.
Okay.
The deputies don't provide much of a detailed report besides I did a patrol and maybe pull 3 people over. Sometimes they only do that, but with the highway patrol,
Okay.
they do keep stats for us.
Okay.
So we could
And
do
then
that.
the last bit is our committees. I think you, Alan had mentioned this a little bit too. I'd like to actually get a report, excuse me, from like Vision Committee, what they've done as far as, you know, public safety as well. I'd love to hear from members of that committee, you know, just to sort of see.
They don't
is
do
it-
public safety, do they?
The vision committee, no.
The Vision Committee
No,
doesn't.
two
do
different, yeah,
public-
two different committees. I'm saying
Oh,
from both, I'm
right,
saying
yeah.
both committees. I'd like to actually hear from, you know, like at a person from each one to sort of see, is there anything that we as council can do for them? Anything that they think that we should be doing, things of that nature. I'd like to hear some of those.
I would tell you to, just me, I've went to a lot of those meetings and sat and listened to them.
I was at the
On
last one, I
purpose
know.
didn't participate, just listen to them. And, it helped me a lot. So I would tell you,
I went to
you.
the last one. I did go to the last one.
Yeah.
You know, again, just listened. I didn't participate or anything.
Yeah.
And it was good. There was a lot of things that were brought up, and I'd like to, you know,
To the Visioning Committee?
no, to public
Oh,
safety.
public safety, okay.
And I don't know if we've ever,
Mhm.
like, looked into any of those suggestions that they had made or anything like that as well. So,
Yeah. I don't know, but I guess if you stay involved with them, you'll be able to be up to date on it. I didn't watch this one or go to this one.
So I guess the question is, like with the public safety, do we go to the committee and say, where's your report? Or should we tell public safety, you need to present a report?
we're talking about
Well, they are
whatever you guys-
volunteers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right, correct, they are. I think that public safety would
Yeah.
probably be very,
If we're now having these committees going forward, Caroline's working with them. They're going to, in the past, they've just been kind of organized to kind of give some advice to me to put projects together. With the Vision Committee, I've actually organized them to subcommittees, and one's working on the playground. They're actually going to give a presentation next meeting, believe it or not. And the other one's working on history stuff for the library, but they're now taking minutes. And so that may be another option. We can start providing you, once they approve their minutes at their meeting, stick the minutes in there. Obviously, again, that's a council decision. I just caution our regular meetings are really getting along, and I'm worried about when we get to the business of the resolution ordinance, we're all kind of exhausted. And but that's completely your call, obviously, if you
Well, that
want
might be
me
a
to
good
try.
idea, because then we all know what happened in that meeting. And they feel like they're gonna get some traction now. So, yeah.
Anita, I have a question, a legal question for you. Yes, no. Years ago, I used to do a lot of coming to P&Z, and then it was kind of brought up, that kind of mudds the water, because they're supposed to bring you something to council as a packet for all the staff. So I've tried to stay away from P&Z's promotes, because you can be, man, that guy's what is he, a jerk? You get all this kind of pre-thoughts in there, and you're going, okay, now how am I supposed to be impartial and, all this. So, and then also it was the other thing that, two council members in the same room, you can't have a stand up and say, this is my opinion, that opinion. So it got to the point, all I'm doing is listening and being tainted. Is that a good suggestion for council, maybe to stay away from P&Zs, because they're kind of an quasi doing their thing, the first level?
They're public meetings and they're
Right.
publicly noticed, so I don't have concerns with you attending the P&Z meetings or any of your committee meetings. What I do recommend is that you not get up and speak. But aside from that, if you want to go and listen and hear what's being said, there's no issue with that.
Okay.
All right, let's go ahead and keep this rolling. Is that it?
I'm
Okay, good.
I'm good.
How about discussions on upcoming agenda?
This is just more of a heads up. I just want to kind of get you thinking. Our Oops, that one's actually wrong up there. Upcoming meetings, we have one next week, obviously our regular council meeting. We're going to have our budget amendment on there. Council appointment again, if you want to move forward with that. I did send a ranking sheet to all of the council members if you choose to use that to try to help you guys through the process. That's obviously your call if you want to use it individually or as a group.
I thought that was going to be on 25th or something like that.
The council? No, I think that's June meeting. Is that correct? Yeah, we scheduled it for this June meeting for the appointment of the council.
What I got is the end of the month on that.
Yeah. I'll check and see what was said at the last meeting. I'm sure it was this upcoming meeting because we only have one meeting, only one more meeting this month. We don't have one on the 25th.
That's weird. I don't know what I have here. Okay.
I thought it was the July meeting as well.
Yeah, I don't know.
Is it the July?
Yeah, I thought it was the July meeting.
Okay, so we'll move that to the July meeting if that's the case.
Well, that's what that too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. The fiscal year 2026, we're going to have 3 meetings in July. I'm not ready with the budget yet. We just literally got the data yesterday from the county, so we're still dissecting that and have to work through staff. So we'll do a budget workshop that's only going to be the budget in July. It'll be the second meeting we have in July, which is the 15th, 18th, or something like that in there. The charter amendment's on there, so remember that's in there. Once you guys approve the charter amendment, I just, something I heard on my manager's meeting, please note that town staff or through newsletters or anything cannot use any type of media besides if you want to use social media to promote it. So we can't even put it in our newsletter about the charter. So that's actually a state statute. So they'll be up for you guys to get that information out as council members by talking to your constituents. So just a heads up, you won't see anything in official town documents related to that.
And social media is okay? Is that
My understanding is not town social media, but your personal social media is okay.
So do not put anything on the town's Facebook page.
No, you won't see anything on any town media whatsoever, and you know, even the mayor can't write about it in his newsletter discussion part.
That's weird.
It is, yeah. I think it was 2 years ago a statute was passed related to that.
Somebody had something to hide.
I do want to let you know we're going to vacate a lot of right-of-ways, streets that, or at least going to bring for you to vacate that are in the park. We have streets going through the middle of some of the buildings and the park, so we're going to clean that whole thing up and resurvey and plat that and get that cleaned up. Then at the July...
Can you go a little further into that, what you just said?
Sure. So when the original, if you go back, the land was donated a long time ago, and the original was lots and blocks in the area, and little sections of the park have been acquired over time or given to the town, and they still have the 80-foot right-of-ways down the middle of it. For instance, where the new bathroom is sitting in the middle of a street, of a platted street. It's not a street, obviously. So what we're going to do is vacate all those and create one park. So it's just one parcel property that's all inclusive. So it's clean when we, like for instance, right now we're having trouble. We can't get the septic permit through because the septic sits in the middle of the street technically, and we're trying something else to do it till then. But we want to get all that cleaned up to avoid future problems going forward. So that one's an interesting one. The budget amendment, it's going to be a little bit complex, and I encourage you guys, after you see it, come sit down with me. I did a staff report and tried to explain it, but there's different little things coming out of different departments, so there's one grand total, but it's for 3 different things. For instance, in finance, it has the insurance claim in it from the lightning strike we had early in the year. It has some of the FEMA stuff in it, so it's a number, but it's inclusive of a lot of different things. And a lot of it's being funded by budgets or will be in reimbursements, such as FEMA. So this is kind of one of those meetings. I encourage you to read the packet. Please, if you have time, call, sit down, just to help expedite the meeting a little bit. Please call and make an appointment, sit down with me. I'll be glad to sit and visit with any of you. And the same thing in the July meeting. So we'll have the plat for the Osgood property, and we're possibly close to getting the zoning for the hills of Montverde as well. Not Montverde Estates, I'm sorry, for Montverde Estates. So there's going to be a lot of complicated long meetings coming up, so I'm just, again, encourage you, please utilize me to help that process move smoother. I just want to make sure you have all the information you need for those meetings. That's all I had on that one, Mayor and Council.
Okay, let's go next. Have our presentation.
Sure. So I just wanted to throw a little data out there just to kind of show you where we're out of town. It's nothing I expect to do any with, nothing you have to digest. I can provide this PowerPoint to you later. Just some general information. So if you could just kind of look at the boards. We've been kind of, now that we have our new VoIP phone system, we've been able to track a little bit of our records that we've had. So we only go back, just kind of went through a little, so it could mean a lot, could mean nothing to you. But in 2023, we had 109,000 phone calls come through the town of Montverde. And if we're open 198 days at the town of Montverde, so that's about 546 phone calls that come through town staff. There's some missed calls and some messages, but either one way or the other, that's incoming and outgoing. So it's a pretty decent sized number. This allowed us, this is again 2023 to 24, this is kind of a breakdown so you can see when most of those calls are received. So last year it seems like September, November was a very busy year for some reason. Then you'll kind of see that March time, and I understand that one because that's the dry season, and once everybody gets their first high water bill because they've had their sprinkler running like crazy as you start the dry season. So we do have a tendency to get a lot of phone calls during that time. This is our 2024 count, actually down a little bit, 95,000 phone calls, which is about 480 phone calls per workday, the days that we're open. And again, you could kind of see the times, dry season tends to be a little bit of a peak when we get those phone calls. Then I kind of went through and I just wanted to kind of show you what we get in a year. So all we were able to pull was this last year of emails, and total town of emails have gone in and out, both things, is 44,500.
Oh, I get more than that.
I know. You would think. You probably do, Mayor. And again, this may seem low, it may seem high to you. I don't know how. The only thing that was shocking on here, I was really surprised how I probably get twice as many emails as any other staff or the two highest staff members put together. And, I got back from vacation and I was answering emails while I was in my conference, but I still have 265 left to get through. And there's junk in there. But, as a town, we have to open the emails because we have to keep them. They have to be part of the record. I just can't hit, junk all these. So wherever that's worth. Interesting. Utility customers. We went back to 2018 just to kind of show you how things have changed in the town. We had 564 customers, utility customers in 2018. And as of today, we're at 1,054 utility customers that have gone up. So, so really just show you to that is, every utility meter is a possible demand for service, meter reads, meter problems, things that could happen, possible leaks in the future, things that impact public works and administrative staff at here. Then when you count the total number of meters we have, looking in irrigation meters, because when I look at utilities, every connection we have is a possible service connection. We could have a problem or needs some type of service or a call. Sometimes we get a call on a potable meter, sometimes we get them on an irrigation meter. So we've gone from 564 to 1,293 total meters in town right now in just a short amount of time. Sewer accounts, 2023 we had none. We currently have 385 customers we service with sanitary sewer in the town, and that number will obviously probably double here in the next 2 to 3 years as we pick up the hills of Montverde and the rest of the ones come online that we have. Code complaints, and this was a little hard to get the data early on. It may have been more than that. The mayor probably has a little bit more information on that. If it is one, you know who it is. But code complaints from 28 to 2019, you can see where we're at, and currently we have 53 active or completed code complaints within the year, and kind of a steady rise on that. And I will say code complaints, if you look into where we're at now, some of these are open. Really since the hurricane, I haven't done much with code enforcement at all. We lost our special magistrate in the spring, so we're gonna kind of get those moving back in August again. We do have a lot to clear out, and that should ease up a little bit. So those are actual complaints that we received. On building permit.
Interesting that the code complaints parallel the growth from 22 to today. It's almost identical in chart, yeah.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's probably accurate, I would
Yeah.
say, as you pick up more houses and concerns. And
Yep.
I really feel like it's gotten a little bit better. A lot of them are grass complaints, some of the more serious ones. And, there's a lot of the code complaints are related to water runoff and building, where we've had to done enforcement fines for building permits and things along that Building permits as a town. So these are miscellaneous building permits. So these are your pools, your fences, your, putting a shed in, those kind of things. We've gone from 57 and 19 up to 234. We've kind of been averaging, mid 200s there for quite a while, up to 2024. I didn't include this year's because it's not a full year, and so it's hard to get a feel for what that will be. Single-family home permits. We've gone from 8 to a high in 23 of 96 to 86 last year on building permits. So those are single-family homes that have gotten built, and it could include an office building or things along that line as well. And that just kind of shows you the combined building permits when you look at them together over a period of time. So as you can tell, it's been an increase in both permits, both miscellaneous and building permits, and so that's impact obviously everything on from planning review to legal to town staff to the whole entire process. So I recognize there are some growing pains in there, and we got to keep looking at that. Because the next couple of years, I think we obviously will see that continue for a little bit while. Even the people who bought new homes, they're eventually going to put pools in, and there's always going to be some stuff going on for the next few
Now,
years.
before 19, the county did our permits.
That is true. So that's all the record I have was from 19.
We didn't even, we took it in 19 when the school was building their building, and that was a nightmare. But yeah, I mean, we've grown, of course. It's a tough department, I'll say that.
It's a very tough
It's a tough
department.
department.
Well, there's just a lot involved in issuing a permit. It's just the review process, and there's a lot of people involved in it. And
The vendor
there's
does
some
pretty
things
good.
we can do to get the process, but yeah, most of it goes out to vendors, and some of
Yeah.
it's most of it's statutory requirement of this is what it is, and it's kind of hard to kind of get through
The
that.
vendor has the ugly part of it,
They do.
so that helps.
They really do. Yeah, we pass that on. So what we do in town is we collect the information, put it together, and move it on to the vendors. Then the vendors go through it, get their comments, bring it back. Once we get all those comments, then those go back to the homeowner. Then so we're kind of a processor, and we kind of assist them through the process. So that's really kind of our role. And obviously we answer a lot of questions. That was one of my emails. There was a building question about, can I build, I think, a residential and commercial. I had one of those came across today, was able to get that out. So, we get a lot of questions like that on a pretty regular basis. That's not even accounted for here as part of the building process.
Plus 3-4 years from now, when Osgood's built out and the 130 something there and 115 here, it's pretty much done. We're done building.
Yes. Yeah, then it's going to get a lot easier. It'll just be mainly those miscellaneous permits and infill.
Why did we take it over in 2019?
Yeah, I could tell you horror stories. Like that, you go down here, 3rd Street, make a right, a beautiful house on the right down there. The guy calls me up, the neighbor. There's no fence around the pool, but yet the guy got a CO from the county for his pool. So I'm standing there going, he doesn't have a fence. I can see that. I call the county up, and I can't tell you how many times I called them up and they said, well, he must have had a fence when we did the CO. And I'm like, really? And then we had that 8-foot fence block wall the guy built over here. The county approved it. You can't build an 8-foot wall. And Anita, she was like, well, you can make them take it down. Well, is it the person's fault that he built it? So we were in that position where we had the government where we could tell them to take it down or make it the right level. And the neighbor was complaining. So it took a lot of time. And I found myself constantly fixing things that the county didn't do correctly. And it goes back to the code enforcement. I had 50 code enforcers on my dash of my car, riding around looking when I had China. We didn't track it as well as Paul does now, but it was just a lot of things like that. And we had Patty, who did permitting, and when we hired her, she did permitting in Groveland for quite a few years. So, we had the staff in place. When we're team members could do it. So finally just said, let's do it, and pulled the trigger, Anita, Sean, myself, and we did it. And it was a very hard thing to start, because we started it right when the school started building their building for the high school, the new high school, and they threw a fit because our fees were going to be higher than the counties, and they budgeted a certain amount of money, and they were in this room just giving me hell. So we agreed to let the county finish their building and take it from there. We did, they're accusing us that we did it on purpose. We didn't do it on purpose. That's how it fell.
And
Yeah.
then there was two other factors too involved in that, is that prior to that, the city would cover all this inspections and everything, and we ate that until the very
Oh, it
end
was a
in the
nightmare.
budget, and now they pay up front, which makes it easier on us. It puts it on you.
And we have a vendor now.
Yes.
And the vendor, he does a pretty good job. And he lives 2 miles from here, so it's really convenient. He has a big staff, and he does a good job. And we had bad reports on him from other cities, but we tried him, and he's doing a good job.
Plus, we were in the middle of COVID too, and
Oh
county
yeah,
had
that's
nobody,
that's another thing.
6 months to come take it out. What do you mean? It's just, we're doing a wiring, 2 wires. No, it'll be 6 months before we get there and approve it. And it's just like, oh my gosh.
But it's wound up being very, very good for the town to do it in-house, just because we don't have our other people causing us all these problems.
Yeah, and the representation is closest to the people, and even the issue you had in front of you brought up earlier, that person has a contact. If the county was doing it, that concern would go nowhere, really.
No.
I mean,
And it would take a
time.
week to get an AC permit in the county. You got no AC,
Yep.
that's a problem.
Well, in fact, Mayor, you may remember I brought this to your attention back in, I think it was 2023. Bella Clina approached me and
yeah.
asked, is there any way you can, and I went to the county and asked them, that you can take over the permitting process. We cannot get a house permit through the county. And they go, we see what you're putting out and how efficient it's running compared to what we're getting through the county. And they're like, we'll even pay the county permit fees and pay yours. We just need to get these houses built. And so I did go that route, and I think eventually I got
Yeah.
the county to kind of get in and get things going a little smoother. So I think the county's a little bit smoother, but I think our process, honestly, is a little quicker than what you can get a county permit in most cases. So whatever that's worth.
Well, the county was complaining, I'm not the good one. The county's problem was they would train all these people to do permits and go to people's houses and do the permits. Well, guess what? The developer would hire them after they're fully trained. County had no employees, and they had thousands of permits to
Yep.
do.
Or else they
Constantly.
would go to Marion County or Orange County because they got paid more. And it's like,
Yep, and they still, I think they're finally doing better, but they still struggle with employees in that area. Just a couple other little things real quick here. This also just a real quick snapshot of where we're at employee-wise over the years. We're up to 11 full-time and 2 part-time employees in the various different departments. As we've grown, you can kind of see the growth as stuff has grown in town. I did visit, and I didn't fact-check them, but I asked, talking with the Howie manager, my manager's meeting about 2-3 weeks ago, and they're a little bit smaller than us, both mills-wise and population-wise, and not including their police department, just their public works and staff they have to run the town. They have 15, and he's trying to get some more on. So we do a pretty good job. If you compare our next size city, I think we do a pretty good job with the staff we have, even though there's always room, right now, especially there's always room for distance. This kind of shows you where we're at with our general budget over a year. And I want to note, as you look at this, we haven't raised our millage rate, well, at least since I've been here, I think since Mayor's been here. So we're still at the same 2.83, which is the lowest, I think, in Central Florida. It's definitely the lowest in Lake County. And, some of, a lot of those expenses, as you see raised, you can see a big increase, 2022, 23, 24. But recognize a lot of that is from the permitting, because the permitting cost is huge that we've been getting in from the development. And so it's possible once the building goes down, you might see your general budget go down as well. Now we're going to be collecting more taxes, but recognize every house we take in, there's probably 40 between impact fees and what I have to pay. There could be $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 per house, and so that all gets put into the budget. So
Yeah, and on the impact fees, this is our last go-around with impact fees. It's going to be onesie-twosies after we get done with these 2 places, and that's it. That's a problem.
And then the revenues that match that, and so the expenses came off the actual budget expenses, the revenues we pulled off actual, so they're all a little bit higher than the expenses every single year. So again, you know, you really see the big uptick as the growth and kind of development with Willow Ridge started on those. Then demographics, I mean, it depends on what Florida website you can go through. You can get some demographics. I think we had a report last year, or last meeting, we were a little over 2,000. That's what I pulled off the Florida demographic, something from the state. So, you know, we're roughly around 2,000 people in a nutshell, just under that, more than likely, in that ballpark. I think it shows 1930 on there. So I'm not asking you to do anything like that. I'm just kind of showing that, you know, budget's coming up. I just want you to know where we're at as a town and just give you some information.
No, keep it moving.
I have some questions yet.
Sure.
Can you go, well, all right, so number of employees we have, what was that, 11? Is that
Correct,
right?
11 and 2 part-time.
I'm going to ask council, does council as a whole, do we feel is that 11 is enough? Or what is it? Do we think we need more staff?
I think it's too much.
Too many? You think we have too many staff? I don't think we have too many staff. I think we have too few staff. I don't know if you're serious right now or not. I don't know, because you're smiling.
You asked.
Well, all right. The other, again, one of the concerns that I had is, you know, like, if you look at those number of emails, the one thing that stood out to me was, are you?
Yeah, I just have a hard time
Oh,
hearing.
all right. Sorry. One of the other slides you had up there was the number of emails, and you had, as you mentioned, how many more you get than everybody else. You know, and I've expressed to you multiple times too, and I think council, like, my concern is, what happens if something happens to you? I mean, I'm just gonna be honest. Like, what happens? You decide you've had enough of us, you want to leave, or God forbid something happens to you. We don't. I think we don't have a backup. Like, we just don't have a backup up there.
Yeah, I mean, the process under our charter is you would hire an interim city manager while you search for a new town manager, or interim town manager. I think that's the process the charter lays out. You can also appoint one of the, I'm grabbing this, so I'm going to grab the board here in a second. You can also appoint one of the current staff members and an interim. But yeah, I think right now with all the projects, I think the town, it would be hard for a new manager to come in. And I try not to go there, you know, and say that, but I mean, I do recognize just where we're at now with the development and also all the grant money. It would take a new manager probably, I would think, 9 months to a year to get up to speed on some of these things we do have.
That's not what I wasn't suggesting. But my suggestion, or my question and concern really is,
We have no backup.
thank you. Yes, that is my,
Yeah.
that's my
Yeah.
concern. Right.
Paul gets T-boned in an accident, and he's, you know, Mr. Mayor, you're gonna be busy, you know.
Yeah, there's
Well, and you say
Right.
that, but the mayor under the charter, he can't step in and really do anything more than what he's
No.
You
doing.
would need to appoint
So
somebody.
you would have to seek an interim
We-
town manager.
there's retired city managers that are out there. There's 5 or 6 in the area, and they come in and run the place until you hire somebody. And council just has to be a lot more in touch what's going on. So,
Yep.
and honestly, and that's why we went to a city manager government, because we used to sit here and I could drop dead tomorrow,
What if?
and nobody knew nothing. And it's a little better now, but because Paul's, you know, got it laid out a little better than before. It used to be all on one person's desk, and that was a problem.
You know, I will say our staff in a short term and even a midterm is capable of keeping the day-to-day operations of the town going. I have trust in them. I keep them very independent in what they do. They come and ask questions and things like that. I mean, they will need some, obviously, guidance from, again, an interim manager, but we do have a pretty competent staff, I think, that could, you know, at least step up and keep the day-to-day operations going. I don't micromanage them in that way.
Yeah, I would agree. What he does, he's finally in a position, because of our young lady here, to do is to finally cross-train correctly. He hasn't been able to do that for the 4.5 years he's been here. Now he's at the place, you know, like Sandy's over here now, and this young lady's doing a part of it. So cross-training is a big problem for this little office because everybody does 3 or 4 things. So that's a problem if somebody gets pregnant for 9 months, you know, or something happens. I didn't say that.
What's the thought of it hiring an assistant town manager?
Not me.
Okay.
Mm.
The last bit I have then as far as staffing goes, and I know staff's not going to like me when I make this suggestion, but I think as you've seen by our growth, I think we need to start looking at 5 days a week in some fashion, whether it's an on-call rotation, 3 people with 1 maintenance guy, or I think at some point we're going to need to do it, especially with all the additional houses coming, and we might as well start sooner than later. But that's just something that, I mean, we can talk about it later, but it's definitely something I do want to address at some point. Again, I know staff won't like me, but.
So I do have we do have Public Works on call 5 days a week. So I have on Friday, one of the Public Works employees does work on the Friday, and he takes the Monday off. So
Good.
so we do have that to take care of the calls and things along that line. If you know the four. You know, one of the biggest thing I get when I go to these managers meetings, they are struggling to keep any staff. It's literally a revolving door, and you know, I kind of smile because I feel very fortunate because one, we have, I think, very dedicated staff, and the staff I have isn't paid at the same level what most of the staff is making at some of these other communities, but they enjoy where they work. They do enjoy the 4-day work week. They enjoy the benefits. They enjoy the fact you treat them, you know, by doing a special meal for them, giving them a Christmas performance bonus if they earn it. Those little things that don't cost the town a whole lot, you know, because really, if you look at any of my staff, and if one just decide I'm going to another place, you know, whether it's permitting or anywhere, the whole it would create, and there's just not anyone. We don't have anyone for that to fall on. So, you know, I will encourage, you know, just kind of, we need to kind of keep that where this is such a great place to work and they feel appreciated for what they do. And part of that's, you know, you guys as council have done a great job at lifting them up and encouraging them. And I thank you for that because that makes my job easier.
Again,
Now,
I'm not
the counties have gone to 410s because they had a hard time hiring people.
And working at home. That's the latest
Oh, yeah,
thing
they
is a
work
lot
at
of them
home
are
too,
saying,
yeah.
"Could you work at home 2 days a week?"
So
I'm like,
now
"Oh no, please don't."
The manager, Jennifer, now that she's got the 410s working, it tends to make people want to stay at that job.
Yeah, I'm not saying we get away from 4-day completely. I'm sort of saying.
Well,
you
Public
s-
Works
you
is here
split
right
things.
now. The only thing that really is a problem, in my opinion, because I worried about it, is the water. So Saturday and Sunday, water is, you know, but now we have so many electronics on our water system because we really did a good job for the last 2-3 years putting it together. They can actually run the system from their phone, which is amazing, you know. And then Paul put that together like 3 years ago, and it works.
Again, I'm not saying we get rid of the 4 days. What I'm sort of saying is you split it up so someone will get off Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then another person will get off Saturday, Sunday, Monday. So there's still a 4-day work week. It's just we have the coverage all 5 days. That additional day could be used for emails and things of that nature to get caught up with other needs where we may need them.
How many people do you envision staff-wise on a Friday?
I would think 2. You do 2
So-
office and 1 maintenance.
So I won't.
That's 3 then, right? Do you say 2 office and 1
Yeah, so-
maintenance?
yeah, 3.
That's 3.
Yeah, it's
Okay,
3.
3. Okay, I say I won't. I don't want to leave a office person alone.
Right, no, 2 offices. Yeah, correct.
Yeah, I was thinking 480 calls a day with one person trying to get something done. That's
Yeah.
counterproductive.
And that's actually a valid
Yeah.
point, because if you think about it, they get that call comes, 480 calls come in on a Friday, there's nobody here, which means Monday there's 480 calls, plus the calls from Friday. I can't do the math that fast, but it's 900.
Well, they're all
960.
directed at me, obviously, so I'll still
Yeah.
be dealing with
Well-
them on my now. Just joking.
That's true.
Most of the residents are used to, we're not open on
I
Friday.
was going to say the same. They
Yeah.
realize
So
that the town
they,
hall's
we're not open on Friday. And there's 2 other cities in Lake County that do it now. and it works.
They do, but I think they also have more staff in general, so I don't think that they're working from behind as much
Well,
as we
you
are.
get into a city like a Howie, for example, if you go over there, they're the same size, same everything pretty much, but they have a police force. So that police force puts a whole different need in town hall. We don't have a fire department, we don't have a police department, we have public works and admin. We're in a sweet spot, and this is my opinion. And that sweet spot we can manage well in 4 days a week, plus public works on the fifth day, plus the vendor that helps us on emergencies. And believe me, I use them quite a bit. You use them, don't you? So if you get a water leak at Saturday morning, you got to fix it. And we have the vendors lined up.
Yeah, I spent many Saturday, Sundays. Yeah, we call them, and generally we come out and check it. And if I kind of rotate with Chuck because I live in town. So if it's just a small leak, I'll drive by
I guess
and
what
check it.
problem were you trying to fix, though? I'm not real clear on what the problem is.
Just ensuring that we're taking care of our residents. That's really
Okay,
what
but
this
what
comes down to.
problem? Is there residents saying,
I have multiple emails like this, right? We all get them. Multiple emails where things weren't responded to, things weren't taken action on.
and they're saying they tried to get a hold of
They have
somebody on
tried, yes.
Friday?
Well, they've tried to get a hold of people, and then they don't. And when you look at a 4-day work week, that's the 5th day potentially. I mean, or we fix the problem, we figure out what the problem is why we're not getting responses.
That's step one, figure out
Correct,
what the problem
absolutely.
is.
And I'm gonna, you and I never really talked about it, but as far as I'm concerned, when your review time comes, that's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at our residents and how their needs are being met. And I'm being very open with you about that, and we never had that opportunity yet, and I know I've requested that, and we've never connected with that, and that's not on you, it's not on me, it's just we've never done that. But that's what I'm looking at as far as how we are handling our residents. Grants and stuff aside, and I know I'm not going a little side tangent, it's just, I'm looking at our residents, and that to me is number one for us. That should be our number one focus, is handling our
That were
residents'
closed on
concerns.
Friday? I didn't even really follow you, I'm sorry. That you're saying the problem is that we're closed on Friday?
No, I'm just saying the follow-up, which we had meant, about the process. We need to figure out the process. If I'm fine with, saying, okay, no 5 days, but let's figure out, and again, I know this is one example of that, right? But we need to get that answer for that one. But I'm just saying, there's other examples that we've had. I know I've voiced them several times. It's a concern for me as we go forward. And then I'm fine with conceding on 5 days, but we definitely need to look at better processes of how we handle our residents. Maybe we
I'm
need,
not real clear on what the problem is. You're saying that there's residents saying that they're not getting service correctly because we're open on Friday? We're closed on Friday?
no, they're just not getting responses to certain things. And Friday is, my suggestion for the Friday was just because it would give an extra day. Potentially we could follow up with the residents on that 5th day. So I'm saying if we put that 5th day aside, that's fine, but then we definitely need to look at it. Maybe, what about a help desk solution? Because there's tracking in that. You could track all the tickets, everything comes to a central system, and you can then track it, and you'd actually have timestamps on everything as well, as far as you would go, as far as looking at things, and then we can follow everything. I don't know.
That's an idea. Didn't you fix the phone answering service? Didn't you change it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, we have after-hour calls that someone picks up when we're not here. It's for it says for emergency only, and then it goes to an after-hour. And it's worked. It's been good.
Yeah, you added it to the website, and I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I think that was a big thing there.
Yeah, I think I understand, and really, I guess, Grant, I think there's always a couple that will slip through. I don't care what you do, you're gonna have a couple slip through that may not get the response until they reach out. Because when you do have limited staff, there is only, and then when you add a vacation and or time off, and it seems like I hate saying this, when I always hear complaints are get hammered, it's usually when I'm going on vacation, which makes me never want to leave on vacation. But that's usually when it happens, right? Because if I'm not here for them to come with the issue when it's here, then I have to get caught up on the other stuff. I have to prioritize. And like I said, I haven't made it through all the emails. I haven't finished all the stuff with Patty, so I have to prioritize what those go in. But, you know, if the expectation is someone calls and they get a call back the next day, then yeah, I need 4 or 5 more staff members to make that happen. I mean, if that's where we're at, if that's the expectation of level service, then I need to have a couple assistants working on that. We need to have a backup for this and all those, you know.
I mean, look, if that's what you're going to need,
But
I've
is that everybody's level? And I guess that's the question as I do the budget. You know, I try to handle calls as is a lot when I'm there. You know, a lot of times you have a list of calls to make, then your phone keeps ringing all day, or I have meetings already. Like I got back, I've had meeting schedules. I was in the county on a very important thing. We need to be there for the charter, so that was half my day yesterday. And I'm not making excuses. I mean, it's my job to execute for the council, but I need to know if there's a different expectation. We know as we get busier, things are going to take longer to get done. I talked to a lot of city managers. I think we do it a lot quicker, and a lot of cities do. I will say that because I've had 4 requests in the Howien Hills for some information from them, and it's been on 6 weeks now, and he apologized. Hey, I'm just backed up. So I get that. I don't want to be that, but, you know, I don't know if it's, you know, 3 to 4 days sometimes. I don't know if that's reasonable depending on what it is, or if you guys think, hey, it needs to be the next day. I really need to look at what we need to do for staff. Then we got to figure out where we put the staff if we do that.
I'm asking you to shut me up is what I'm asking you to do.
No, I'm not asking. It's just, you know.
That's what I'm saying. Because
if
we can figure out and we can come up with some sort of statistic that says, here's our level, here's what we're doing, here's our response. I have, you know, I'm done talking about it.
Yeah, and I guess I kind of go back and look at the amount of phone calls and emails that come in, you know, calculate your complaints there as a percentage, and I'm kind of curious what that percentage is that you've had in the 6 months, you know, to take 6 months of that. Is it 1% problem? Is it 10, you know, because I really need, you know, I used to love stats, and, you know, we could do a quick little back napkin, but I'm glad, you know, I mean, I am looking at the budget to see, you know, I'm have a quandary between Public Works. We still have a position of Public Works that has been budgeted this year. We have not been able to fill. The person I told you we hired, he worked 1 day and he took another job. Better pay. So I haven't been able to fill that position. So I know in this next budget, there's a couple positions. I think we need to do a little market adjustments, just not huge ones. You know, I will say the clerk's position and the finance position and Public Works. I might need to do a small market adjustment on those. I'm looking at trying to contract out more stuff. I don't know if anybody's seen, the town just put out a bid for mowing services, and it was a comprehensive landscaping bid to take care of a lot of stuff that's taken a lot of our guys' time. So I'm trying to get the Public Works we have freed up to do the Public Works stuff. Lakeside, I'm not going to go on too much of a tangent, but I think it's important, like Lakeside, where obviously the construction project starting that next week. Our guys were there almost all last week having to do locates. We not only we've had to find the lines, there are lines we didn't even know was under there that we discovered that aren't even on our maps, and we had to locate the height of those pipes. So, you know, it's I need to get Public Works free to do Public Works stuff and getting the landscaping, but I will look at another office position that could maybe assist me in, you know, not necessarily instead of a, you know, assistant manager. If anybody's quality is going to, you know, it's going to be in the 6-figure range. I mean, just face that. That's the reality of today's market we're in. You're not going to find anybody that's not in the 6-figure range. And I mean, but I could look at assistant that could help me take on these emails if that's something the council's open to.
If you can look at a help desk solution, I mean, I'm more than welcome. I'll gladly help you with that if you wanted it. I just think that way everything comes to that central box, and you can respond out. You know, Sandy can respond out from Sandy, and every employee would have that to it. And the cost it's not an astronomical cost or something like that. So,
sure, we'll take a look at that. Yep.
Well, no,
sorry. Go ahead.
It does sound like you could probably use an assistant, and not saying to put the position in the budget, but if you have somebody either office side or public works side, or maybe one on each side that you could kind of start to delegate some of the smaller things to, because the day will come, again, hopefully not anytime soon, but the day will come where you'll be out of commission, you know. Yeah, and it's like you said, you're now for the next week or what have you, playing catch up from and granted, well-deserved vacation, no doubt about that whatsoever. But it does put you behind the 8 ball when you come back, because everything just kind of
Yeah,
drags
it
up.
does. Well, and recognize as council, these next 2 years are, I mean, really the next 18 months, just with the capital projects we have, it's going to be unheard of. It's going to be nuts, and that's really where I'm concerned about. But I will say, I am working on delegating and training as much as I can, but most of our positions are right now, they're running, there's no one really twiddling their thumbs, let me put it that way. I mean, I think they're all staying busy, and I'm still assisting. You know, really almost every one of our positions is still training somewhat. You know, they're not necessarily trained in their areas, you know, at 100%, came with 20 years of experience. You know, it's kind of on-the-job training, and that's kind of the nature of a small town, because we can't compete with to get the, you know, certified this and that, that's done it for 20 years, that could pop in and do it at that level.
Two comments, Paul. We're looking at three years, maybe 5 years, and our boom is done. From an employee side, oh, they hired me, now 3 years I'm looking for another job because they don't need me because of workload. Ethically and morally, I would have a problem personally saying, yeah, we know that this is the end. It's not like your contract is in the military or something for 4 years, 5 years, and your DOD that one moves on to something else. It's like we brought somebody in. What I'm saying is, do we need to balance between what we need and what we will need? Is the need here, then we're going to plateau and start downsizing, and it's like, okay, now we got to lay an employee off or cut their pay and move them to something else. I wouldn't want to personally be in that situation. Like, I'm gung-ho and now I'm no-ho. So, you know, I can see that point of view. Both sides of it, there's pros and cons. One thing that I do have a question about, Paul, it's been a long time since, as a resident, I haven't had my water turned on, but I get calls from people on Friday going, we're moving in and I can't get my water turned on. How can I do that? Are we posting somehow when new residents come in, they're getting all their stuff and, you know, they're getting their power turned on? Are they aware that we don't turn water on Friday, Saturday, Sunday? There's nobody there. I mean, that's a special, somebody has to go do that. You know, you, Chuck, somebody. Do we address that? So when they come up here and go, well, I'm moving in tomorrow and we're, you know, I don't have any water, I got power, but no water in the house, what am I supposed to do? I've had a couple of those calls, less now, but they still occasionally call.
Yeah, I mean, same thing. If we were open on Friday, we'd have to wait over the weekend. Yeah, so they have to come Monday because, you know, we are required to get certain documents when they own the house or have a lease to actually be in the house, and deposits have to be made and the application's got to be filled. So there's still a little bit of a process of stuff that has to be turned in on that. So, yeah, to answer your question is, yeah, pretty well, that's Monday through Thursday when you get your water for a new house activated.
But a lot of people, I guess, are not, they're either asking that question or they're not grasping the answer. They always assume, well, I came from XYZ, and it's like, sure, I called up and they came in, they turned it on, they came out, you know, that's it, read the meter.
Yeah, I mean, that's all I can say. Yeah, they definitely wait. I can tell you that I asked for a meter to be installed at the Butterfly Garden. They said it could be up to 90 days. We'll let you know a week ahead of time when we're out. So, I mean, I think it's a kind of a service industry. I don't want to be like that because that was frustrating as heck for me. It's like, come on, you know, 90 days, can pop a meter in? You know, but that was my response from Duke Electric, from two people.
Couldn't that be in like something, like a welcome bag or something? Like you move into Montverde and you get like a welcome kit? I don't, you know, maybe something Vision Committee could come up with. And
but they still got to come in. Usually at that, it's when you turn the water on is when that process starts, because we don't know they're a resident until they come in to ask for services.
But in the welcome kit, we could remind them in big bold letters, hey, you can't do anything on Friday. Take Friday off, people.
Monday through Thursday.
You know, a page on water, a page on permits, a page on yada yada.
No,
Blah blah.
I mean, I'll definitely, I've thought about what you're saying, Mr. Morganelli. I really haven't sat down to see what that would look like on paper and staff. You know, there's also going to be some inefficiencies, why it does make that. Also, you know, as we work, a lot of things we're doing with our projects right now, they require Sandy and Patty and Mai to work together, and then sometimes with, you know, when you have certain staff, you can't get certain answers because a lot of stuff goes through finance or a lot of stuff goes through permitting, which is, you know, finance and permitting is 90% of the questions we get, and obviously utilities. I mean, that's where most stuff comes in for questions and concerns.
You're talking about the welcome kit?
No, I'm talking about the Friday thing. So, no, we've that's something that's on my list of the
'Cause
welcome kit
I think
thing.
we have one or two from Willow Ridge on there. I'm only mentioning that because they've sort of fresh. They've just recently moved in and everything. That might be, we'll pick their brain, say, what would you wish you had known, type thing.
Sure.
Like
Yep.
a FAQ or something like that.
Hey, well, all right, that sounds good. About significant tasks and projects, this could be a good one.
Yeah. So I'm just gonna bring my board over, and this is just kind of I just wanted to go over this and see if you had any questions. I'm gonna pop it up there as well, what I have. Well, you get a look at the Montverde stuff. Then I'm gonna flip it. Then you can look at what I talk about. But
You wanted him to double side that?
so this.
Oh, it's up there.
There you go, both places. See, I thought ahead, guys. And you're welcome to come take a picture of my board at the end of the day, too. So this includes council priorities. This includes staff priorities. It includes town manager priorities. It includes some legal stuff. It includes, and I'm just going to go through real quick and just highlight on a couple things and let you know where some of those things are at. So it's not necessarily, you know, this is what council has done. Some of it's stuff we've talked about that just is taking time to get done. So town council handbook, that's something over the last 2 or 3 years we've been talking about putting a council handbook. We have a draft together. It's kind of just dropped to the side for a little bit. Something that could be brought back if we want to look into that. There's some updates we need to do to employee handbook. That's just something when Anita and I get some time, we need to sit down and do that. It's kind of been honestly up here for 3 years, both of these have. You know, because my job is always reshuffling priorities, and you got to kind of take it which is the biggest priority in front of us right now. We've talked about doing some trail extensions and working with the county to get the trail out to the Ferndale Preserve and also get the trail extension out. We do have some funding through the school on the backside and up to Willow Ridge, so we in town could, even if it's a sidewalk, you know, so we can walk or ride our bikes with our kids and go to Publix once the new bridge is done and all the restaurants that are there. Already thinking about our Christmas program for 2025. That one just stays on there, and I just change the date every year because it's Christmas. On that list in our capital improvement plan is a kind of a small little pocket park where the water tower is, just having maybe some sitting areas there or some. That edge of town has really no park facilities to come this way, so that's something that council, which half of you weren't here, kind of said, hey, we really need to look at this and get that done. Vehicle replacements, just looking at that for budget, I got a vehicle that needs to be, or 4 trucks kind of going. So I'm kind of always looking at vehicle replacements, and we have found the downtime and the maintenance and what it does for public works for small staff, trying to every 3 years, we get to buy our vehicles at the state bid, we flip them, we don't have to take them in for any maintenance outside of tires, maybe one time in its life, same with our equipment. So I'm always looking for those opportunities because generally we could sell them only for maybe 10% less than what we bought them for. And you can, for maintenance, that's incredible with the state bid. And Mayor is actually the one that got me hooked on that one over here. So, backflow updates, administrative code. Our backflow program is antiquated and not up to date. We actually, Anita and I have put a draft together. I think Anita did the last review, and it's actually in my court. This one's a little bit complicated because it's going to require a lot of people in town under the new under what's proper AWA standards to update and put backflow devices in their houses. So that's the water prevention for water. So that one's going to be a little bit tough because people are going to have to spend $1,000+ in order to bring things up to date on their property. And our code currently says they have to do that. Ballards at the generator. This has just kind of been on my list for, I hate saying this one, for 5 years. We have the Ballards. We have the generator by the fire department, trying to get something so a car isn't back into them. The survey of the cemetery. When did you have the last survey done, Mayor? 2018?
Probably 10 years.
Yeah, 10 years. Since then, we expanded the cemetery, and so we have the availability to put some new lots in there. So that's just something that one budget year I'm going to try to get that in there, especially when we need to use those lots. Working on the 2025 budget. We, this year, just keeping track of our grant submittals. Right now, just have one appropriation into the state legislators. Last I heard, it made it through the House and the Senate. No, excuse me, it's still in for the House and Senate when they re-meet, so it hasn't been kicked out by any of the committees yet. And it was just, I think, like $350,000 for the sidewalks for Montverde Academy to improve the crosswalks and the sidewalks in front of there. Additional cameras. Every budget year I look for opportunities to add some additional cameras around town in our public areas and our places where our kids play especially. Website updates. We've done some updates to our websites, looking at adding information. You know, every year when we have our slow time, which is kind of usually February, January, I want to keep looking at that. Staff training, trying to keep an impetus on this of training our staff and getting our staff to training so they can be better efficient at what they do. ADA sidewalks, Mac Terrace, that's contracted out to be done. I thought it would have been started this week. I'm going to get a hold of the contract, see where they're at. I think they're waiting on survey. So that's the crosswalks over at Mac Terrace, plus the walkway that goes to Lake Street. Yes.
I was just going to ask you to give us short.
Yeah.
What are we missing up there?
I think I think it's the survey that's missing. Everybody's waiting on the surveyor, so that should be coming soon. I do have it permitted through the county. The school trail, still working with the school. They're looking at doing some redesign in the back with the stormwater detention, so we're working with them to do a trail connection so we can get around and people from that end of town could come in downtown without going on the road. Complete streets with MPO. We have a planning design request with the MPO for complete streets. So I'm just got that on my list to kind of keep an eye on that. Who is our MPO rep? Is that? Okay. So next time you're there, if you could maybe check and see any status on that by chance, that'd be great. Legislative appropriations, I keep that on there every year. We look to see what legislative appropriations, that's basically when they just put the pork in the budget, that we could try to get some for Montverde. This year there was a big emphasis on safety, and they were very low on water quality, where last year it was water quality. So every year you kind of get a feel for that. Hydrant testing, we're just behind on going through and testing our hydrants, and we'll probably contract this out because we're going to hopefully be able to use our grant money to replace all the bad hydrants. So that should be upcoming. Power washing is kind of always on there. This just lets me refresh my mind. Repairs to the Statue House, boat ramp is on there. I will give you I'll just give you a quick little update on the boat ramp. We did have a part of our Lake County Water Authority, $200,000 on that. As you remember, we kind of paused our Porter Avenue project and other projects while we were kind of working through the sanitary stuff. Lake County met, and they actually have told us they're not going to extend that $200,000 loan, which is the $200,000 grant, which was the match for the $1.8 million. So that was actually, I heard that it was last week that happened. However, they told us they're doing that to everybody. They just want us to reapply because they've been on the books too long, and they feel confident everybody wants the boat ramp, so we're just going to reapply for that. So we're going to have to, we do have a $375,000 appropriation that we got 2 years ago that we can apply for the $1.8 million match to use for that match. We'd have to pull it out of our money.
I was thinking about that. Now, we're not doing anything to the boat ramp because we're waiting for Lake County to get done using it.
Correct.
But yeah, Lake County Water Department is giving us a hard time.
Exactly.
Does that
Well,
make-
it's
I'm
Lake
not
County
there.
Parks and Lake County Water Authority is under Lake County Parks now. They've been doing a bunch of organizational changes in there. There's a little bit of politics going on in there.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying, and it needs to be a couple phone calls here.
I would agree. I am going to ask Commissioner Parks to get his thought on this.
I'm sure
and
you can take care of it.
There's I think a little bit more emphasis at the county level of trying to reel some of the money in is what's going on a little bit. Fire department, just trying to work with the fire department so they can hopefully get built and move. Patty did finish up the permit for them. It took a little bit of time. There's a lot of stuff to do to issue that permit on
They're
that one.
finishing the one in 473 in Leesburg right now. It's the same exact building.
Okay.
Yeah, if you guys
Yeah,
want to see
that
it.
was nice to see those photos
It's
you
pretty
sent
nice.
about what
Yeah, I took
potentially
pictures.
going to look like, yeah.
It's a full block building, 2 stories. It's nice.
Yeah, I think they're still having tortoise heartburn about the amount of money to remove the tortoises over there. So,
Tastes like chicken.
yeah, it does. It does. Yeah, new library. You know, obviously, we're still working on that. You know, we're shooting for that August time frame. Going there, we're going to have a little. That is one of the things I'll have on the budget amendment is the final funds for the library. Everything is still in line for the $2.45 million that you guys originally budgeted 2 years ago. I think we're going to be fine and not go over budget. I need to put the rest of the revenues that wasn't budgeted in there in the budget. It's mainly admin impact fees and permitting, but that's going good. Right now, we're really waiting on the cabinets to go in, and once the cabinets are done, the flooring could go in. So we're kind of at the part that's just slow going while they build the cabinets. Lake cleanup, and this is actually something from Jim Lay, Councilman Lay brought up a couple years ago that, you know, working, maybe get a group of people to, or find a way to go clean up around Truscott Lake. Now we've got the hurricane, it's beyond a mess over there, so just keeping that on my list so we can maybe try to figure out how to do that in the future without being eaten by alligators. Flower beds, just working to try to figure out how we can improve the flower beds. I did some changes to the roundabout this year. I want to get the downtown looking better. That's something, I have that landscape bid that I just put out. It's for complete maintenance of all the beds, all the shrubs, the planting, everything, to take that off the public works. And it may come back in ridiculously and we can't do it, but we know we don't have the staff to maintain it in a way that I think is worthy of the way the town would want it maintained. Let's put it that way. Water tower construction. This is our new tower. It's on the list. We got it ready for bid. Nita actually, I think, just finished up some of the reviews we need for the bid process. We're just waiting from the okay from the DEP on that. Water well construction number 3. So this is our redundant water well that we talked about. So again, that's ready for bid. We're waiting on DEP to say that our plan's approved. So we just want to ensure the money's there before we spend it, obviously. Our water CUP. We're getting some final clarification. It looks from the last correspondence we've had with the Department of Environmental Protection, they are going to require us to do modeling and, oh gosh, what was the other thing? And evaluate all of the alternative supplies available to us. And so it's a huge engineering undertaking. So when our engineers did the first proposal, they did it to get us to this point. So we are going to have an increased engineering, probably going to be between 150 to 200,000 to complete that, what DEP is requiring. And that's actually a water department payment. It can't come out of grants because that's operational stuff. They were going to send it to me, and I asked them to reach one more time out to DEP and like remind them we're a small town. They're asking us to do something like we're this, and they said, well, the other towns in the area, even our size, they made them do it, but they're going to reach out one more time. With that, they're asking for another extension to get our water permit. The good news is we are putting in for a 20 year, so if we get there, we should be done for 20 years. Our FEMA claim, Sandy's continuing to work on our FEMA claim, has been continuing to have meetings. They still have a lot of turnover, so it's been a little slow, but she's been staying on top of that. We still have some follow-up with our insurance hurricane claim, and we're just kind of waiting to see what FEMA does. We say hurricane, they say wind, and they don't want to cover anything. Lakeside storm project. So this actually officially got kicked off today. I think they started doing some surveying. They should be putting their equipment out there and mobilizing here in the next couple of days if they haven't already. I've been out there. CRA was put on there. We obviously just took care of that at a CRA meeting, where we ended up 2-2 on that. Setbacks, I think that's actually coming to the next agenda. I think we have that on there for the building setbacks, so that was on the board. Our stormwater improvements, just working on trying to finish those $2 million worth of projects that we have from our DEP grant, and First and Porter and Truscott Parks, the next one for that. The water engineering, just still kind of working to make sure we're getting our water plant together efficiently and looking at all the options, and that's all grant funded. The JPA with Lake County, and we've sent in our final comments, and I think you sent those over to Melanie to ask her to, I think Lake County wanted some additional stuff added to that, and we agreed we'll put that in and bring it to you and see what you think on the JPA. Mayor and I are be attending a countywide workshop meeting with the county and the commissioners and their staff on the 30th of June. And the whole purpose of that is to review the status of everybody's JPA and get some clarity on a couple issues. The county's wanting to try to get some common language in all of them, so they don't have 14 different JPAs out there. So ours is really ready to go. We just need to get the county to kind of make sure they got all the final language in there. So that's a joint planning agreement for anybody listening there. Grant tracking and cash flow single audit. So I've showed you the pages before. We did have a single audit this year. I'm just associated with the grant. So Mai has worked with our auditors to complete that, and I haven't received any feedback of additional information at this point they need on that. So that's kind of half done, half complete. Willow Ridge, utilities, houses, so they've done their final plat. We have to do the final punch list for Willow Ridge, so we're just waiting for them to call us to go out and do the final punch list for phase 2, and then we still have a performance bond with them. I believe it's like $1.7 million for the whole project. Then they'll turn over a maintenance bond for 20% of the cost for phase 2. We do already have a maintenance bond for phase 1. I believe it's a 4-year maintenance bond. Osgood Development Comp Plan and PUD, those have been submitted, and those will be coming probably before planning and zoning, maybe sometime in July, and then to council. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me back up. Osgood comp plan. Osgood is done, and the preliminary plat has been submitted, and so that'll be going to planning and zoning in July and to council for approval. That'll be just a 1-reading resolution. Our job is just make sure it's in compliance with the PUD. 5-year capital CIP. We just did that, and that's just an annual thing I keep on the board. I put vacation on there just to remind myself to get away once in a while. So,
You did that for the year, so you can go ahead and take it off.
yeah, got one more coming up. I'm keeping my eye out open for trail grants as they come along, just for sidewalks and trail grants, because it's always been brought up concern. We connecting our neighborhoods so they can get to the parks and the connectivity. Updated impact fees. So that one's been up there for a long time. So and we have the updated impact fees coming at the next meeting, so that'll be there for you. Integration of staff duties, cross training. I'm always looking at that, looking for opportunities. I got Melissa's working on learning some of the library stuff. Sandy's been working, kind of doing some of the library stuff back and forth. Caroline's gonna start looking how to do, in case something happened to Mai, doing some of the payroll and simple AP stuff like that. So we're looking for opportunities as we have time to do some cross training. So it's, to your point, that's always important to me, on my mind. Code enforcement, I just thought that would remind me, so I got to do that once in a while. So that one gets to the back burner a lot. SCADA at the water plant, so that's a part of our grant funding. So that's the computer operation where we can remotely control things and have everything sync together. We've done some improvements on that. There's a next level to take that to. And so after we get all the wells and everything, we'll work on getting everything talking together with itself. Fire hydrant painting. I know. Yeah, that one will be a vendor, but I put that to the side because I think under the grant that we have, we're going to be able to replace a good number of fire hydrants. I don't want to paint them until I know which ones we can replace. So that'll go into the hydrant testing. Once they test them, look at them, we'll replace and come back and paint the ones we don't need to paint. And I am going to put some money in the budget, in the water budget this year specifically to do that, because I should have some answer on that here in the next couple months. Local history video. This is something we started last year, kind of I think old timers is what they call it. They're working on putting some videos together to kind of telling the history of our town. That'll be available at the library. So that's been an ongoing project for probably 18 months now, a little over a year. Newsletter, I'm working with a vendor that's going to put together a really nice newsletter for the town with all the information of here where I go for this, here's what we offer, here's at the town, giving information both new current residents, and also telling some stories about the town as we go through it. So really kind of like a magazine thing about Montverde. So I'm looking at trying to get that together. So it's going to be full of information, but also some fun reads, I hope. Again, trying to get information, transparency out there, trying to share stuff about our town, because we got a wonderful town and a lot to celebrate, and I just want to make sure that we have that opportunity to do that. Where are we at? Hills of Montverde Sewer. that will be transitioning to the town at some point in the future, so we'll take that. I need to get a rate study because they will be on a separate rate because it's a small system, so it's going to be more expensive to operate, and so we make sure that the town is running it efficiently, and that also will include, the rate will include staff time, administrative time, everything that's involved in it for those rates. So their rate probably will be higher than what you'll see in other areas. The SHAFA funding agreement, this is with our 2 grants. We're still working to get everything put in. We got the water one in DEP. We're still finalizing the stormwater one based off the meeting we had 2 months ago. So that's with the state and DEP. Still working at, we got a few street signs that's been up there for a while. They fixed some. There's still a few street signs from the hurricane that are bent, turned over. I got website updates again. See how important that is to me.
So you can just cross one off your list.
I know, there we go. Outdoor park bathrooms, finishing up that. Small water storage tank, that's at the Butterfly Garden. Butterfly Garden, we still got a little bit to do, and that'll be done out there. Got library on there twice. Working on the library emergency generator. We think we can pull that into our DEP grant, so we're actually doing the engineering on that right now, and we should be able to put that into our water facility grant because that's our emergency response building. Community building, we're going to have a discussion about that tonight, what to do with that. And fire station, county, I think I had that on there twice. Kirk Park, Vision Committee has been working on. We have in the money, we have money in the budget this year to add a playground in Kirk Park, trying to aim at a little bit of the bigger kids there with a little bit bigger swings. So they're going to come present that to you at the next meeting and get your approval to move forward with that or not. Lost my place.
Fire station, county.
Yeah, there we go, yeah. Yeah, so I already had that on there, so that's doubled. So I got a few to cross off here. Porter and First Street Storm, so we're continuing to work on that. I divided that, had the engineers divide that into 2 projects. One is the street project and the storm pipe, and the second one's actually inside the park with putting the underground storm detention. Since we have all the damage from FEMA, we need to see what FEMA's going to do before we spend the money and have to go back in and tear it up twice. So keep this in its place.
Trustic Park.
Trustic Park. So again, that come back to FEMA. So same thing there. We got to do the FEMA recovery on that. 455 Storm Street Sidewalk. So that's the big project that we've talked about using our $19 million for. That'd be a big chunk of the change. So we're working on preliminary designs that'll be submitted into DEP on that. 8th, 9th, and Temple. As you know, with the last development, the developer agreed to contribute $1.5 million, making improvements to those roads. And
1.63.
1.6, thank you. And well, number 1, generator needs replaced. It's not working, and we've gotten all the last phases of FEMA approval to have that 80% covered by FEMA. So we're just waiting on the main administrator, program administrator, to sign off on it, according to Sandy. I think they just change every couple months, so that's our issue. So hopefully we're soon on that.
Now that hurricane season officially started, I would be a little nervous that we don't have a generator that works for water.
I mean, we generally, when things hit, we got to make sure the other one's completely running and up. So, and you know, I'm pretty confident that we'll be fine on that.
It's just one of those things you kind of worry about at nighttime.
Oh, I do, yeah. I mean, it can actually run it. The voltage is regulating, so it's not healthy for the pumps to run, and so it's just old. It's just aged. I think a couple of these I had on here again. Elevated storage tank we talked about. The upper Floridian well, that's a redundant well. We're also looking at a part of that DEP grant, a lower Floridian well. And this is probably going to become more critical because this is probably going to be our alternative water supply that we're going to end up with of getting approval, because it's the only one of the alternative water supplies we have grant money that could fund it. Going to the lake sounds nice, but it can't be funded by the grant money we have, so it'll be out of pocket. Something use permit, that's on there twice, and water line upsizing. So we're currently doing engineering. I had the engineers break the upsizing. This is part of that $12.9 million grant we have DEP. So one of the projects the council approved was upsizing our water lines and hydrant replacement. So I had them start on the areas where we need the largest upsizing, and also the line connections such as Ridgewood, going down Ridgewood. And they're going to keep working through that, and until what time we get DEP approval, then they're going to wrap up the plan get it submitted for bidding, and then finish up the rest of it as another bid, just to keep things efficient and moving. Because our biggest thing here, we got to remember as a council, is all these funds we have, nearly 40-something million of it has to be spent by October 2027. And it doesn't look like the federal government's going to be extending grants. And that really worries me, because this is a lot to get done in 18 months if you think about it, because the federal government's really pulling back the money now. And you see that everywhere. So that's just my junk list. And this is what takes all the time. So I'm not going to go through all this. I'll flip it up on the board.
Just a reminder, that's what he said on slide
You
one.
guys got to
He
see
was
the
just gonna
board the
hit
other
high
way, but
points.
just in case.
Yeah. He was going to hit the high points. It's the same thing he said on slide one, yeah.
This is Montverde. Obviously, the closer you get to Montverde, the more staff resources and time it takes, and this is what it is. It's a wonderful event. This is our 100-year celebration for the town. 2 weeks before and the week after, it's kind of all I'll probably do is Montverde stuff. It gets crazy, but we're already planning for that. I've already worked on getting the sponsorship letter out. It's ready to go out on the emails. I did a final review of it early this morning and got that ready. But these are just kind of some of the things that we go through, and not all of them inclusive, but just the things that we don't forget, so we can get things rolling on Montverde.
Just out of curiosity, photo fence? What is that?
We're at.
Those
Upper
are
third,
lakeside security.
right under, LCSO security. Put your finger out there. Stop.
Right there, above fire
Photo
engine.
fence. Am I reading that correctly? Right where your finger is.
Yes. I honestly don't know what that is.
Okay, I don't feel so bad. All right, move
Move
on.
PC. I'll have to look at that one.
I think maybe that's where they set up to do the photos. It says Montverde and there are hay bales and.
Yeah,
and all
it might be.
that.
I'll have to
That
look back at
may
my
be what it
notes.
is.
Sometimes I over generic put stuff on there, and I got to look back to see what was that. Any other questions on that? I'm sorry. What you're
I think fix train and build fire station, train station should be moved to the top of the list. I'm pretty sure that Mr. Hartle might just agree with that.
Yes, yes. No, I've been kind of looking. There's a place in Asatool that actually makes the ones that look like a train, and it's fairly reasonable. So I've been kind of glaring at those, like maybe we need a little train in Montverde. I don't know. So.
How would council feel for Montverde to do one of those dunk tanks where we all take turns and get in and have the residents throw balls at us?
I can't swim.
No, it's not that deep. It's not deep.
That's a good comeback, yeah. Oh, thank you. Public support, yay. I want to bring up, I get this, I don't know if anybody else does this, they always say, your food vendors, how come we didn't use, Mr. Willie's, and, you guys don't bring in local vendors to help. Well, my discussion with local vendors has been, especially with Willie's, I make more money staying where I am. By the time I tear everything down and move over here and then move back, it's like I'm content. Cal's, she said the same thing. They know where I'm at, not where they think I'm going to be. So they seem to, our local vendors with the ice cream and everything else, they seem to say, we're content. Traffic comes to us more so than if we moved over there. So I just want to throw that out to people when they're listening to this, and it's like, well, how come you're just biased against our local vendors? No, our local vendors are saying it's more economically for them to stay where they are, and traffic comes to them. So to throw that out.
On that note, I did have a question actually on that. Is there any reason that we don't include our local establishments for our council meals? Is there a reason that we don't? I'm just curious.
I can't say for sure, but my first guess would be probably because they're closing around 7.
I know Cal's
Might be a push. I have no idea.
I know Cal's would be interested in it. I didn't talk to Willie's, but it's just something I was curious because it would help our local businesses who really do need help from us.
And Willie's is only Friday and Saturday unless he wants to make a special trip for the council. Yeah.
So, anyway, okay. That was my question.
How does that,
What's that?
the meals, just out of curiosity, does that go out on bid or we just,
The meal, what's that?
the council meals on Tuesday?
Oh, Paul manages it.
Yeah?
Yeah, so we have used cows in the past. It's been a while, and I've used them for workshops and staff meetings. We've been using tabletop catering just for staff time because they come in and set everything and puts it in. When we go, it usually has to have staff, which is right as we're prepping for a meeting, go and get the stuff and set up. So I've used them again for workshops, and it seems like a couple of years in the past we've used them. I'm not opposed to it. It's just more been a, timing and getting the stuff here and the variety.
But you do use them when you can.
Yeah, we
Or
use
you
them.
have.
We've used them for staff meetings and occasional things like that. And I used to occasionally, like when I know we got a long workshop, like on budgets. I haven't done anything this year like that because we've since tabletop's kind of taken more of that budget. But I used to also on the workshops provide a small meal such as pizza and salad. I really just haven't done it the last 9 months, honestly, just because the cost of food has gone up so much. Everywhere it's kind of starting to pinch where I used to have a lot of extra, but I'd be glad to do that too, especially like when we have long workshops. It's up to you guys, or I could do it at a regular meal if you choose to. So there's no right or wrong reason. It's just the
I was
convenience of setup and one less thing on our plate to deal with.
One thing I noticed, Paul, on children's activities a couple years ago when we had the tennis courts, these kids, you gave them a place to chalk scribble. Man, they just ate that up. And I was running that was the first year we did the train, and it's like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Parents are going, "You're going to burn up out here. Get out the." No, I'm drawing. They really love that. I know we got children's activities on there. Is there a place for the kids to do that again? I think they really enjoy that.
We did it last year as well. A little less of a coordinated area. We didn't do the tricycle things just because we didn't have the concrete for it, but we put all the kids area over by the old stage underneath the trees and by the playground, and that worked out really well last year. And put the games. This year, just our 100-year anniversary, expecting some more people. We're going to include some more games and some more activities for the kids. We've added the blowouts, which we didn't have that year. We did that. So we'll definitely kind of keep growing that and adding activities. This year we have some cowboys coming in, and they're going to do some cowboy riding exhibitions and storytelling. And one of the things they do, they've been doing this forever. They go all over Florida doing it. If you know of, they're like, hey, let us know if, and I don't know the answer to this, but someone here might, if there's been like a train robbery, a holdup at the liquor store or something, or the gas station in town, we'd love to reenact that. If you know any old timers know something history, that would be fun to reenact and tell the Montverde history, especially around, gunswinging in the old days, fighting over the oranges or whatever, the sugar cane. Please let me know, and what they need is a script written of what that was like, kind of
Just
like a
make it
playwright
up.
script. We can make it up. I mean, that's what they'll end up doing, but I thought there might be a history, if someone might know history or someone might know that, reach out to them.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of 2 questions, how is our magistrate with his medical condition? We honored him. Remember, he
Oh,
fell.
Jim?
Yeah, it's
He's
Jim.
doing good. He's
Good.
3 weeks into it, and had a meeting with everybody, and he's got another 3-4 weeks there. Lucky for him, the lady that runs Skytop lives in Montverde.
Well, a comment back to the kids. That first year we did it, I had people, they were saying, they would come up to me with kids, and it's like, Pig on the Pond, Ocoee, Winter Garden, Claremont. They never had something for specific small kids, and they were just like, man, we love this. Our kids, we could do anything. They were content there for 8 hours to draw and scribble with chalk. So I felt that was you made us unique, and people were commenting that you're the only ones that do this. So one more uniqueness about Montverde.
All right, we'll see what we can go with the next one. Discussion on town council priorities. That was this, right?
No, this is just, I put this on there just as an open, Councilman Morganelli kind of wanted to talk about everybody's kind of long-range plans, I think both in council priorities and both long-term and short-term, and priorities for council and priorities for the town. So I'll probably defer, if you don't mind, just starting it off, Mr. Morganelli, and then council could kind of chime in as you
I'll start off. To be perfectly honest, we don't have enough time in the night to go over this. This is, I mean, and I appreciate you adding this. This is not really what I was thinking, strategic planning meeting. Again, I really wanted to dive into that list. Is that list still important to everybody? And again, that's just part of it. I mean, I do have a lot of, you can see I have a lot of things that I would love to discuss, but again, I'm not going to do that right now. And so I'm just going to pass this to council. This was something that, and I hate looking at other cities around us, but this is what Boca Raton, for example, has done with their strategic planning meeting. And for example, I'm sorry, good catch. For example, Boca Raton was 2 full days. I'm not asking for that, obviously. I don't want to, all of us have other things that we have to handle. And, for me, I was looking at 1 day where we were going to discuss things. There was, I have my notes on that here.
And I apologize. The thought is I think you need to start the conversation of more specific, because I was a little unclear. Strategic planning is a formal process that takes multiple meetings over time and development of a plan. And, that's what I think of as a manager, because that's what I've been involved in and been taught. The town did do a strategic plan about 4 or 5 years ago, and we do have that, and so it could be an adaptation of that. But, you mentioned the list. I guess really I would like just clarity on myself of, the things you would like to go over and discuss are important. So then the council just needs to decide if they want to set that time aside and set it as an agenda item, or, go forward. So that's my only 2 cents.
Okay. I'll name some of them. Code compliance. I think we need someone dedicated for code compliance, not being you. I already mentioned the 4-day work week. I mentioned earlier about the CALS situation. We've all mentioned here, we sat through the CRA in reference to helping downtown district, but yet we haven't included them as much as I think we should have. Just like I said, for example, just our meetings in general. And I'd be curious to know if they all feel that way, meaning that it's not worth it to them to do that. I don't believe that would be the case, but again, these are a lot of my notes. So I tried to consolidate some of this. I have one of the things I wanted to talk about was we have a budget coming up in reference to one of which I think you had alluded to, potentially increasing spending for law enforcement. And I definitely know we have a massive speeding issue here in our town. So looking at some other long-term solutions, because I can't see us continuously increasing spending for law enforcement. So I did some looking at different things, and like for our 7th Street here, raised crosswalks, which it's a form of traffic calming. So I sort of printed this out, and again, take a look at this. That's a form of traffic calming. It's basically, it's super wide. It's not typical speed bump. So I mean, because I'm not a fan of speed bumps myself, I understand, and having said that, for that would actually slow people down on 7th Street, which would eliminate having a presence there, because you can't open that Lamborghini that I've seen so many times doing 100 miles per hour down 7th Street on a Saturday or a Sunday. They'll get airborne on those things. So they wouldn't be doing that. I'm just trying to think of
that one, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but that appropriations that we put in, that's what that money could be used for. It's just specifically for the crosswalk and sidewalk connections is how I put it in there. So
okay.
just that
no, again, but I think it's just going to be a straight crosswalk, right? Like not a raised one. And again,
we have enough money to build. That's what okay. I put it in for. I actually, the design I've seen that I would like to see that would be safer and slow people down is a little bit of a raised with a medium in the middle with a flashing sign that's both in the middle and on the sides when the kids cross, because part of that grant's to improve the safety as well. So, and I've even seen some where they actually have the lights in the raised part that flash as well when the kids are crossing, because that's one of my worries. I mean, the academy's in charge of taking care of their stuff, but it would just be devastating to see a kid hit and
absolutely. Again, 7th Street's us, so I do think that's something that we need to, and I've seen it. I mean, I've seen parents not even wait for kids to cross. They've just gone. So, again, these are just some of the notes that I said, and again, I'm not looking for feedback on it, but this is summing up some of the stuff that I had discussions about. We don't have electronic speeding signs coming into our town. We have them on 455, but not coming into the town. As we move forward with Osgood, 7th Street, we have the ability to, but can we make 7th Street off limits for the heavy trucks? So it's going to force everyone with the big dump trucks, those things, to go down 455, which is a county road. Therefore, the county will be the one responsible for maintaining it, not us. And instead of us having to worry about 7th Street, after all those heavy trucks go through for Osgood, we're going to be redoing that road if we don't do something. Costs of future projects, long term. This is something that I had mentioned in the past. I'm going to use the Butterfly Garden as an example. I think it's beautiful. I do. I mean, I absolutely loved, and staff did an amazing job. Everyone, there was 53 people, I think, that helped out for that. And that was something, just for me personally, it really did give that sense of community to me. And I really did enjoy that. So I'm not trying to, talk bad about it, and I'm not talking bad about it. My concern is obviously, as we move forward with some of these projects, I've always asked, what is the long-term cost for that? So, for example, I know now we have to maintain all the weeds that are going to come up. We didn't put any ground cover down, so, I mean, we're going to have weeds continuously in there, which, I get that's part of it, but it's still a long-term cost for us that we are now going to have to budget for. And, I'm not one that wants to talk about raising our millage rate. I just don't want to, but I think it's something that if we don't think smart about some of the things we're doing long term, it may not be while we're up here. It may be while, 4, 5, 6, whatever, how many years it might be. It's going to be someone else. We're pushing that can down the road by not addressing some of these long-term costs for things. I know some people have mentioned, our roads. Obviously, I know we need to redo our roads, but that's not something that's new. And that's something that previous council never thought about and said, hey, maybe we should put some money in a separate, section in our budget for roads. And now we're sitting at a point where we need to figure out how we're going to do those roads. So I'm trying to make sure that we don't run into that situation as we do move forward, 5, 10, 20 years from now with that. I want to, I'm trying to think long term for some of these things. Again, I mentioned the 4-day work week. I'm sure I have other stuff on. I'm sure I have other stuff on here. Like I said, that's just a sort of a summary of, again, this is my thoughts, right? I mean, there's still, I'm sure, I would hope you guys all have thoughts as well about the long term for our town. So that's stuff that, I want to hear what you guys think long term. Maybe you guys are going to be like, nope, that doesn't make sense. And then, okay, we can discuss it. But that's what strategic planning is. As well as put out a couple polls to our residents and say, what is, on that document that I gave to you, what are some of your concerns? How are we doing as a town? On many different avenues, whether it's infrastructure or, again, the response times or other things. What are we doing? We don't know, if we don't involve residents and things like that, we will never know where we're at as a council or as a town, and that's always my concern, because at the end of the day, we don't have a lot of people here tonight, but again, the residents, that's who we answer to at the end of the day. And I just, for me, I have a lot of things on here that I'd like to discuss, and we don't have the time to discuss them all. That's why I wanted to do it. That's why I proposed that strategic planning meeting. And again, I do appreciate you adding this as an agenda item. I do.
If the council will indulge, would you at least mind listing them? That way I could get with them and some of those things like you went through. I think we already have some of the answers.
I'll send it to you an email. Yeah, I'll send you an email.
Well, I think I would like to have the council.
See, I look at the list,
But I'll send it
and
to you.
we need you, this is my opinion, we need you to go through your list and put it in order how you see the priorities first. And, they can't do the whole list, but just take the list and put your priorities for this year. And then let us look at it, all of us, and say, oh, we agree with that, or we'd like you to move these two, or something like that. And then we're starting to structure it a little better, and we can measure it at that point. Would that be something we could do?
I agree with that. I know A lot of the things on the board, Paul, that you went over were very good, but they're related to our grants, you know, and that's kind of different than, that's like the priority, the grants, getting those end dates, but they
Yeah.
trickle off to other things, and,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, that's what I'm getting at kind of is when you start looking at the list and understanding what our deadlines are and a lot of different things and what our responsibilities are, the water tower and the $19.8 million go right to the top of the list for me, you know. So I don't know if that's what everybody else thinks. So the 19.8 needs to be planned out and executed, and he can manage it. But it's not going to be like he's so in touch like he was with the library. That was definitely hands-on. You know, now he's going to be dealing with construction companies and people that build water towers and engineers to put lines in the water. But we have to get that all laid out right here and now so that we can spend the money in 2 years.
Especially because those end dates on those, they
'Cause
scare
that-
me. It's like
yeah.
the money runs out and we haven't finished the project,
There-
then we are stuck.
We're not going to see this money in again
Right.
in my
Exactly.
lifetime.
Exactly.
So how do you feel about that?
I'm okay with that. I'm just trying to think how I mentally could schedule time in my brain with the stuff I have going on to get that done. As long as you don't expect it like, next month, I think I can work through it as we,
Yeah.
I mean, obviously we got to provide our services to our citizens. That's always the number one priority. And then, in the back of my mind, everything I mentioned on that board kind of, goes to the side with spending that grant money because that's going to come and go. And if we don't spend that, for instance, on the water system, if we don't get that money and spent, all the stuff that's on there is stuff we have to do anyway, and that's going to be a tax increase for our residents. Just to be clear about it, if we don't, what we can't get accomplished is going to end up because we are required to do almost everything we have on that list or will need to get done. And how do we fund it? I mean, I've never seen water grants ever for that level. It's usually a 20-80%, 20% grant, 80% at our level, and they're hard to come by. So
I think we're all on the same page. We're talking, all three of us and four of us five of us talking the same thing. It's we want you to manage the big dollar ones right now and get
grant
that
stuff where the
handled.
money's ticking away. Yeah, let's put those to a priority.
yeah, and it is a little different process of managing it. It's not going to be, I mean, we got to finish the library. It's still going to take some time to get that out the door, but it's on the downhill run, which is good. These grants are going to be more of an administrative management grant. And I'll give you, for instance, this today, actually, it was one of the things I got done this morning. We got the first pay request for Lakeside. And I'm looking at it, and I was like, well, what have they done on Lakeside? And there was $100,000 worth of requests for mobilization, for cones, and I drove out there. There's no cones out there. There's no mobilization out there. So I had to write the engineer, and they had to send a thing and deny the request, and had to get a new request and got that submitted for approval, which just included a percentage of their mobilization. So it went from 100-something to 35,000. So it becomes more of that administrative review, but just that little process, 90 minutes of my time between the couple interactions I had. So that's where my time will kind of process will go, kind of reviewing those, and eventually we'll have to, staff will be involved in that, and engineers will be involved in that. But ultimately, anything that goes with money comes before my eyes, and I'm the first to look and the last to look at it because the buck will stop with me, obviously, on those things.
Yeah, I'm trying to come up with a way to communicate what your priorities are, and we agree
Sure.
with that.
Yeah,
So
not
if
that-
you would just look through the list and pick 10 things that are your top priorities and bring it to us and say, these are the 10 things I want to work on,
not
that I'm working on.
Yeah,
Does this
that's
make
fine.
perfect sense to everybody?
not
We
the
could say,
administrative
absolutely.
part.
I think it's going to be pretty easy to get through it. 'Cause once you look at it, you're going to say, yeah, I mean, we need to do all that.
I mean, honestly, some of those on that list to me aren't a priority, though. I'm just being honest. Like, I get the grant stuff. I do understand, like, some of those big ones I do.
Yeah,
But that's why I want to have that open discussion, because again, maybe that list that's up there, it doesn't need to be as daunting as it is if we all, again, some of those I'm assuming were what, 4 years ago, some of those projects, I'm guessing?
They are.
Yeah, so again,
But
are we all still
again,
on that
that's,
page?
I'll come back. That's not the council's priority list. That's a kind of a reminder list of town manager, where probably no one in this room probably was thinking that the backflow program needs to be updated. It's not on anybody's priority list. Well, it may be on yours. And it's actually, it's
on
been
my
the one
board.
that keeps getting pushed off and off, but it's an important priority because if we at least don't have it close, at some point, we're going to get a slap on the wrist. They're going to say, fix it in, X amount of days, 180 days, or get a fine. And because it's that old, it's like 80s. Something.
That one's a nightmare.
Yeah, and the reason I keep pushing it off is because once we implement that resolution, the work on Public Works is going to be so extreme to put it out there. So yeah, it gets bumped, but it needs to be on the list.
Well, I've asked other cities how they do it, and they go into how they have the outside vendors that install the backflows, and then they come in and read it. People come in and read it and ticket people on what they have to do and report back to us on what people have to fix what. And like Coe, I was looking at Coe's real hard, and it made sense. And that's the city that I actually looked at before we did the electronic meters here. I went down and looked at their system because I know the people there, and they showed me what they did, and it's like, well, that makes perfect sense. And so I would try to use as many vendors as possible.
Yeah, I would agree. And and it's a struggle. And the vendors today versus what they were yesterday, it's a little harder because they're far and few and they're expensive. And I'm always trying to stretch dollars, but now I'm doing that expensive time. So I am at that point where to do some of these, we'll have to do vendors, but then we got to put a lot more in the budget to deal with the vendors when we get there. But it's even the whole tracking process. Every 3 years we're supposed to keep a record of that have been tested and those kind of things. But lately the state hasn't been too harsh on those, so I keep pushing it off. But I just throw that example. I mean, there's a million out there. I mean, obviously, I can go through and pull out what are true priorities out of there. Not to say I would erase anything off the board because, again, that's those particular things are more of things I am keeping on my radar because council say, hey, this is something we want to look at. You just went through a list of 20 things just here, and you still have a longer list. And if council says, yeah, I think that's something we need to kind of at least look at in the future for grant or maybe funding, then those were things that would end up going on the list, and then we would have to reprioritize those.
Well, like first go through it and take the things that are done off, and then go through it and take the things that are doubled off, and then go through the rest of it and say, these are the 17 things that are my priorities, and then bring them to us and say, is this your priorities?
In our bucket list.
Yeah, and then put it, for me in my mind, I put the first column be these are the things we're working on right now, and the second column is these are the things that are in line to be next, and the third column is the wish list. One day we might get those done. Just that's how I work, but you need to put it up the way you need it. Yeah.
I would agree with you on that.
So maybe we move that forward that way with the priority list and see how that goes. And if everybody's okay with that, so maybe in 60 days be ready to show it to us.
Yeah, I agree with that process.
Does it work? Does it work?
I'm
Okay.
on board.
I'll throw something else out. I mean, I'm all ears.
That's good.
Everybody's all ears.
Like I said, the only reason I want to communicate with you guys is because I don't like our meetings where they're going to go as long as they are because of all the questions. I think it's pretty apparent to residents we're not on the same page. And that's why I'm trying that. That's why I keep suggesting it again and again. I do think, again, it's clear we're not all on the same page. And the only way we're going to get there is by communicating more. And I mean, look, that's a good start. I'm willing to try that. I just think.
I talk to Paul 10 times a day, every day. So it's tough for him to talk to me all the time, and then talk to you guys all the time, and then get things done without a doubt. So I try not to do it a lot, but that's what I would like to start with. Okay. And let's see how it goes. And
So you're part of that 480 calls, it'd be 470 calls.
No, it would be 310.
Yeah. You're doing your job, Mr. Mayor, you're doing your job. Paul and Anita, a question that comes in my mind, it haunts me sometimes, it's not a reality, but it needs to be addressed, is that, we've had trouble, and our residents say, well, how you only got 2 bidders. It's like, this is ridiculous. Well, when you send out the bids through legal process, the state demands us to send out bids and nobody responds. Our residents sometimes go, well, Are you guys nuts? Why are you doing that? Well, because that's the only people who responded, and we can't go outside the system. Question for you, perfect example that comes to my mind. Town of Mineola started their library, and their original contractors said, "Oh, we're walking off the job." It's like, whoa! Now you're back to, we got to resend this thing out, go through all this process, blah blah blah. That's time. I know with our major projects that we're talking about, the water and all, those aren't companies that are going to be, oh, nah, we don't want to do this. We're going to go to Fort Myers or Fort Lauderdale. They got big money down there, and you guys are like that. It's not so much a reality as it is a possibility. How do we defend our town? I mean, we can sue and all that, but we still, that's secondary. The idea is we need to finish the project. And if we're twiddling down here, our grant money doesn't depend on, well, you had a problem, so we're going to give you another 2 years. How do we resolve that or address that, I should say?
Sure, I'll chime in and let Anita chime in at the end of that. So depending on the type of bid of it is public works projects, street projects, there are state thresholds where you have to follow certain bidding procedures, and they are what they are. And you have to go through the process, and there's stuff you have to have in those agreements. And Anita probably could, she does all the final reviews, she could tell you what those are a little more in depth, but it's pretty extensive. And even under state statute, when you reach those levels on those particular public works projects, there's bid bonds involved, performance bonds involved, could be some other things, which puts a lot of small companies out because it's not easy in today's world to get a bond. And so what you see is a lot of times you won't get the local contractors. Lakeside's a perfect example. We reached out to 17 contractors locally from the Orlando area and everywhere in between, letting them know the bid's available. We put it on our website, we put it in the newspaper as per statute, and we put it on the state bid website, going through the normal processes. We received 2 bids. One was 1.1-ish, almost 1.2 million. One was 785,000. If I had the opportunity, I can do it in-house and use my local contractors, probably have it done for 400,000. But I don't have that option. That is the option, especially when you're using federal state grant money. You have to follow those processes. The library is a different example because it didn't follow it. We still have to follow bidding procedures and our purchasing policy. And those bidding procedures, while we still have to put it out to bid, we self-bid it and we bid all the subs. And we have an 8,000, following that process. And we did the different contractors at a level and broke the project at a level where we didn't reach that level of bonding. And so that opened up the door to a lot of people. So what we have is an 8,000 square foot building that we're going to be in with furnishings for $2.45 million, where you had just got completed I believe it's the Astor Library, that's 6,000 square feet, went through the whole bid process and did all that, and there ended up around $4.6 million for 6,000 square feet. So, I think that's the advantage why you recognize this has taken a lot of my time and a lot of my staff time, because we've done some stuff in-house there. We've done the landscaping and some of the things. At the end of the day, if you look at it on a per square foot basis, if I, really bid it to the level that we were able to get it, because it was a lot higher than when we really did it, we just had a $2 million savings for the town for, the inconvenience of that. And that's huge. And that's what I think you see on a lot of these projects we do ourselves. When you kind of get into that bidding, it gets it where you won't get stuff done.
Well, I also know too, we've been down through this road before, and I speak with a little background on it. You go into a project and everybody thinks, well, I built my house in 6 months and blah, blah, blah. Well, these big projects are water projects. It's got to be engineering. There's DEP. There's all these agencies that have to have their hands to final approval, and sometimes you spend more time in approval packaging than actual construction job finishing, which is, to me, is frustrating, but it's the process and you have to follow the process. I think some people don't realize the intent that goes into doing all those things. And then there's work changes and all this other stuff, and it really gets in the high weeds real quick. And I just kind of wanted to maybe bring it out publicly to let people know we're doing our best, but when our hands are tied, we can only do so much.
And the bid processing is not easy. It's very time consuming of staff. Just getting even though the engineers are putting a lot together, it still requires a review of the plans, of the permitting that may be required. We obviously have to do the locates related to that, and the big projects come in. We have to actually manage the bid on the internet by our subs. The engineers take care of the response questions and all that, but we're involved in those meetings. I'm on all those phone calls to make sure we know what's going on, because at the end of the day, if the engineers mess up, you're going to be looking at me. So I need to have answers. And I come to these council meetings and you ask something, and generally you would like your manager to be knowledgeable of what's going on.
Well, that goes back to when we did the architectural design for the library. We only had 2 bids, and we looked at it, and we had the Tampa was like ungodly, and we had our local bidder, and it's like. Then it came before council, and council was, you had the packet of the pros and cons and all the stuff that was involved with that. We have to make that decision, but it takes a lot to get to that point. Then you start, and it goes from there and everything else. So I just wanted a little clarification, kind of.
Yeah, and then I think it was alluded to. I encourage council. I know some of you feel like you're bothering me. I rather have you call and ask me the questions, because it is a lot more work to have to redo things or make changes at meetings, and that happens, and I get that. But the more I can try to at least get some of those answers for you in a more efficient, because sometimes your questions may require attorney review or something, we don't have those answers. So, the more you can kind of get the stuff and get those questions asked ahead of time, I think it makes it more efficient for the things we do, because as a council, you have a lot of busy agendas. I mean, the last couple of months, the meetings have been long. We got definitely 3 meetings in July. We got 4 meetings in September with the budget. So we have a lot of long, lengthy meetings ahead of us. So I just want to make sure that we're efficient as we work through those.
Well, are you guys okay with that? We move on to
Yep, I'm
the
good.
community building. This would be a good one.
We've had some discussions. Some of you have been at the community building. One of the things we talked about when we first brought up the budget is I'm going to keep some money in the budget for, if you guys approve it, for a part-time construction manager to handle special projects that come up. The community building would be one of those. And I forgot what happened. We looked at it, we talked about it, and we were busy getting some of the projects done. And since then, we've took off kind of the skin of the community building. Extensive rot and termite damage, especially on the backside where the kitchen is, to the point it's really not too salvageable in there. The one contractor that did the woodwork for the library, he thought it'd be cheaper and easier to tear it off and rebuild it versus trying to go in and scrim the walls, tear it down, and replace it. So that kind of, I just wanted to throw a couple options out there to you. I mean, we could debate. I think everybody's seen the problem that's going on there. If you haven't, you need to come walk through it with me. Just to throw a couple options, I'm not going to go in depth with them. We don't have to necessarily get a decision tonight. We could leave things as they are. I've had the community building closed. I will allow like a little small meeting group in there, but not necessarily a open public meeting, because it's just really, at this point, I feel it's not safe and it's questionable. Had the building inspector kind of go through there, feels, we've got to be careful. The other big concern is, from a public building is why the old windows look nice and great. They're the kind, if someone fell through them, it's the kind that will just fall on you and cut you, right down your vein and arteries. It's not kind of built for that quality. So I kind of worry about that a little bit, just being the thing. But here's a couple options. We could do nothing. We could potentially tear off the kitchen area and somehow try to hook. We still have the main area. We still have problems too. It's it's not balanced. It's seeking. The beams are sprung everywhere on the floor. So I got rid of the chimney and put a patch on the roof. There's from windows. There's some huge issue in there. But we could replace the kitchen, do nothing, replace the kitchen area and try to adapt that, or just replace the building, or remove the building. I guess those would be your 4 options looking forward. So I just kind of throw it out to start the discussion. There's obviously a lot of historic intrinsic value to the building, and I recognize that. There's also a lot of safety, recognize it as a public building too, that I kind of worry about just from a operational side of things. But it is a building that gets used a lot because of its location. It's right by the park. It's good for birthday parties, events the town has, and when we have some type of funeral gathering. So its location is kind of important, I think, as a community. Some people could speak to that more than I can, but anyway, I'll be quiet and let you guys just throw your 2 cents in, and let's just toss it around, or let me know what other information you need.
So I'm the new guy, so I'm gonna look at this as a cost and ROI, as I've done for all these things. For me, I understand the historical part of it all. I think I'm still on the side of I think we demolish it. Just hear me out on this. But I would 100% support like a historical marker of some sort, a plaque, reusing some of the building to build that. It would allow us to like preserve the spirit of what it was. I also think that we could add on that plaque, we could put like a QR code of some sort to go back to the website where residents can share images and memories of what it was, so they can, it would be remembered. I don't think we need to, we forget it, but I don't see, obviously repair wise, I don't, I can't see repairing that because of the cost, and I don't know if that's ants. I don't know what I'm looking at right now.
Is that the only picture you got?
I don't know what that is.
Did
I
those
see the
close-ups.
termites, yeah.
I figured everybody's walked in it at some point.
I've never been in there.
But
Well,
That's
for
my
me,
thoughts.
we, the bathroom was added on, the 2 bathrooms were added on 15 years ago, so that's all fine. The bathrooms have no problem. Sewer was the problem. Septic tank is fixed. The majority of the building, we put, 60 grand into a year and a half ago, and leveled the floor and replaced all the beams underneath it and got that all secured. So the back part of the kitchen, which has been going down for a long time, I personally think we should cut that piece off and build that and a little more to that building and make that another, like you can have this section up front and another section out back, or just make it all one big giant room. But 3/4 of the building is fine. It's not a problem. It's just the back wall of the kitchen, so just cut the kitchen off. We can get a chainsaw out here and just cut it right off.
Can we get a structural assessment or something on the building? I'm just curious.
we can do anything for just cost, yeah. But whatever.
You know where I stand on it. But again,
has
understand
everybody
that
walked
too.
through and seen it?
But didn't you just do the
Okay.
beams underneath it? And
Well, what we did was we put those leveling jacks underneath it, so we didn't add any additional beams. But we did the leveling jacks. They were able to fix it a little bit. They were kind of stopped because it was getting to the point as they were leveling, it was starting to crack the windows and the doors on it because it was so sprung. So we've had a little bit of water intrusion on kind of by that chimney area, and obviously the floor has buckled a little bit. There definitely could be some work where we can preserve that old part and probably get another 20 plus years out of it, I would think.
Well, remember,
But-
we're going to be putting a few $100,000 into the fire department as soon as they get out of it, and making that the majority, the big 5,000 square foot community building. So the little one over here isn't going to be, isn't going to be used near as much as it has been. It's just too small for any event anymore.
Well, I kind of agree with you, but I also flash back to the old library. 60,000 here, 40,000 here, and it was just like we were just oozing money into something that was like, we need to cut our losses on here and go forward, and we did. I understand historical value. I'm not against that, but then there's also responsibility to the residents. How much money do we spend to keep pumping into, project. I have a tendency to agree with you, Mr. Mayor, that, you know, the quick fix on the back, make it safe. Any safe structures with the windows, the glass, yeah. I mean, I went through that with Paul and Jim Peacock and others. It's like, you know, we flex here, we're gonna crack everything and do more damage. The building's been in there for, you know, so long, it's, by the time you try and fix it, you get to the point where you're going, you could have built a newer one, more efficient, with the same style and everything else with it. I know the historic value and everything else, I get it, but how are we supposed to be good stewards of our money is the thing I come back to. And, you know.
Well, I guess
agree
none
that
of us are-
This will be a great replacement, but what do you do with it? You just let it keep deteriorating and.
Well, like you just said, we could probably get, we redo the kitchen area and make it a little bigger. You know, we got 25 years out of it from there.
You know, you ask the residents of Montverde what is the one thing they want most. They want to keep Montverde like Montverde is. And the community center, even given its current condition, is a huge part of Montverde. There are citizens, residents who can tell you stories of baptisms and birthdays and everything else, and it is conveniently located to the cemetery.
Yeah, you're right.
Fiscal responsibility, I wholeheartedly agree with that, but I do not believe in the destruction of our history.
I can tell you stories about the windows in this building right here. I sat here arguing, you
Yeah,
probably
like-
hear, arguing that we shouldn't, they wanted to take every single pane of glass out and send these frames to a very expensive place that redoes all the frames. And I was like, you're out of your mind. Let's just put new windows in, you know, the building. And of course, it didn't go nowhere. And we sent all these windows, and it took a year probably, and it cost a lot of money. And they rebuilt every one of these. And okay to fine now, but it didn't make any sense to rebuild the windows. But the building itself needs work on it.
I think if
Our
there was
windows
a-
are rotting over here.
Yeah.
Again, too.
Yeah.
That's the next thing.
It's just that that building's so small, it's not like it's gonna cost $400,000 to rebuild it. This one here, 15 years ago, we rebuilt that, it got $350,000. That was a lot, that was, you know, $700,000 now. But it was $350 to do that building, but we never came into this room and did this.
Close to it or something, I would think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's-
Well, I guess we need an estimate to really make any kind of decisions here. How much would it cost to cut off the back of it? Or how much would it cost to level it and build another building? We're just kind of pissing in the wind here. We don't know what any of these costs are.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out if everybody's like, get rid of it, everybody's keep it, then yeah, it's a little easier because we'll have to do a little bit of design in order to get there. When you get to a certain percentage of the building, you got to do, you know, that's the, I forgot what it is. It might be 25. Once you do a part of a remodel up to a percentage, then you have to bring the whole thing up to Florida Building Code. So I need to see what that percentage is. I don't know what that is off the top of my head. So I got.
Yeah, these are all the stuff that we need to know the answers to
Yep.
to even start talking about it. Look at what the little section we put on the firehouse. That was over $200,000 for that little section. You know, that's a lot of money.
225. Yep. Yeah, definitely. I've looked at kind of rebuilding what's similar there, and you're probably in the 250 to 300 range to do that. Another alternative, I'll just throw this out to preserve history a little bit, and maybe something in the middle you can think about. We could look at taking the kitchen off and building. It probably would involve building another bathroom for the inside use, but you could build a new community building and a kitchen and still hook it on to that building in some way or format, but don't necessarily utilize it for public meeting space. So we don't have to put the money into that older building. We can get it so it's clean and maybe keep some of our history pictures in there or things like that that can occasionally be opened up where people can look through the windows. But basically leave the old building but build a new community building that hooks onto it or next to it. If you build a new one and expand it to a certain percentage, we could cover that with builder development administrative impact fees pending Anita's review. It would have to be enlarged and replaced, but I think that would qualify under that, where a repair or a small improvement to it probably wouldn't qualify for the use of impact fees. Would have to be
How much do we
general
have in
fund dollars.
administrative impact fees right now? I don't know.
With the library, it's probably zero running into the negative until we get some more development fees. But we are if you guys increase those impact fees with the new development, we did put enough in there to take care of this building, that building, and the other building with the build out of the current development.
But that's 4 or 5 years from now,
That's true.
so we can't wait that long for that building.
Yeah, but I'm saying you can also run those impact fees into you pay for a general fund, but you run the impact fees into the negative, and as those come in, they go positive. So eventually, you spend the money ahead of getting it, basically. So it's coming out of general, backed by general, but you can use administrative impact.
Well, why don't we get the numbers and look at them a little harder? Maybe get somebody to say, this is what it will cost to put it 1,500 square foot, take the kitchen off and put 1,500 square foot right there and connect the old building. Or rip it all down and build a brand new building that we want. And get that number. You know, a 10,000 foot view doesn't have to be real detailed. I mean, John probably put it together for you.
Yeah.
You know, he's pretty good at that stuff.
Well, we got square footage numbers from what we're doing,
Yeah.
so it should be pretty easy to calculate those out.
Well, I guess if you're going to build 1,500 square foot or 3,000 square foot, it's obviously it's going to be double.
Yeah, I mean, the smaller is more expensive, and the larger you get, you start getting a savings. But we can figure out what that percentage is because we have the 2,000 square foot building we just did, and we can look at that for inflation and cost and go up from there. But council, I just need to
Does that sound
know
good
what
to
you
you
want
guys?
us to do.
I mean,
Yeah, I mean,
speak.
Bring us some numbers.
Yeah,
We'll-
we have
Bring
to
us
get a
some
number for
numbers.
it, I mean.
That's a start.
You,
Okay.
all right. Does anybody else have anything
Does
else?
that satisfy
Yeah,
you?
again, I sympathize with you. I do. I'm right there in line with you as far as keeping our town. I really am. I think we need the numbers before we can really look at that. And I think if the numbers are high, I think maybe we work with residents again to say, hey, what can we do?
Yeah, that's the bottom line.
It's
I
funny.
agree with that.
I'm a long time ago, I was the youngest person in here. Now I'm the oldest person in here. and I used to complain about the old people that the fire department was a great example. They had their arms wrapped around that fire department really tight. It took 15 years to get them to let go, 20 years to let go of that place. You know, and now we got Lake County in there and they're doing a great job. You know, but I can tell you there was plenty of people that died at their house here because we had a volunteer fire department that couldn't do anything. You know, I'm sorry to say that, but that's how I feel about it. Because I was almost one of them, so I'm here to tell you. So anyway, that's all I got. Anybody else got anything?
I think that's a good direction. We gotta have numbers before we can make facts, so.
That's it? All right, I make the motion we adjourn.
I just have one.
Okay.
Sorry, and I'm gonna put you on the spot, so you
I
can
don't
say
mind.
no.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. How do you feel we're not on the same page? We may not agree on everything, but how is it that we're not on the same page?
Residents have voiced that opinion openly. I mean, that's pretty clear. I mean,
Examples?
well, yeah, at last appointment process, you know, both Alan and I took a massive amount of heat on Facebook that we were the problem, that we couldn't come to a consensus. I mean, that's the most recent example of that. I mean, and again, honestly, that's not a negative to me because honestly, when I read the post, I actually smiled and was like, hey, I guess I made it okay. I'm political now, so I'm going to take the heat. That was the one example. I think the CRA was the other example.
Well, the CRA I can understand because that came before council as a council
Correct.
discussion.
Yeah.
Okay. The
Don't get your microphone,
Yeah,
please. We gotta hurry you to tape it.
trying to think of the best way to phrase the question. As a council, do you think that we all have the best interest of this town first and foremost? And when I say this town, I do include the residents.
Yeah.
If nobody lived here, we wouldn't have a town. So the residents are always included.
Us as a council?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely, I do. No, there's no, I'm not pointing a finger and saying, you know, you're a problem, no, I'm not saying that at all. I truly think that everybody up here absolutely has the best interest. We don't agree, and honestly, that's okay.
That is 100% okay.
100%, yes, correct, yeah.
Yeah.
If all four of us, I'm saying four, if fifth eventually, if all 4 or 5 of us sat here and we break a
Rubber
motion.
stamped everything that came through? What's the
Absolutely.
point?
I would think our residents would be complaining about that as well.
I
So
think they'd be loud
absolutely.
about that.
Correct, yeah. So-
I do.
Great.
I don't well, that doesn't matter. Okay, thank you.
Okay, no worries. I do have a couple other questions, I guess, and since I mentioned the CRA, did any of you guys happen to watch Groveland's CRA on, I have to look at the date here, the 27th of May? You probably did not, but I have no life and I have nothing else better to do. So, for example, just to give you guys an example of the CRA, their expenses jumped from originally 2022, 330,000 up to 2.1 million for their expenses of CRA. You guys can.
Expenses for what now?
It's just a screenshot I took of that meeting. So, and I brought it just in case, and since you said CRA,
Well, you actually brought it up.
well, I brought it because you asked me about the differences. I'm about
Correct.
that, correct, yes. So
This
that
is
was-
CRA?
That was CRA, that was Groveland
Oh.
CRA.
So they're spending $2 million?
Yeah, 2.1 million.
So isn't that a good thing? I'm sorry.
It jumped from.
That's a great thing, isn't it?
That's
But
good.
they-
They got,
Because they've taken in revenue, and now they got $2 million to spend on all the infrastructure
yeah,
in
I'm
the
not,
CRA.
I guess it depends on your definition.
I didn't
of it.
follow you.
Yeah.
So back in 2022, they taken in $230,000, and program expense was 344. It's kind of confusing, but like you just said, they're getting more money in every year because they
guess
have
like
the CRA. Now they can spend that money over here, and Lake County didn't get it; they got it. That's what
It
comes down
depends.
to.
I guess it depends. My issue really wasn't so much, again, I know we're going to, I don't want to go to the CRA, I guess,
Oh,
but
yeah, I'm sorry.
the issue for me wasn't really the CRA in the sense of, my issues was the legality of adding certain things to the CRA. But anyway, that's something I just happen to see. But, so a couple other issues, and I can give this, and I can email this, Paul, as well. Some of the things that I was looking, there's swale damage on 7th Street coming into town. I did a drive around the town a little bit, and we're missing street signs on Ridgewood and Lakemont. Street sign on Ridgewood and Alpha Ave is about to fall off. Over by former Councilman Jim Lay's, they're doing that fence area over there. We have on Friday, I noticed, I don't know if it's been since corrected, we're missing the yellow caution tape, so it was completely wide open to residents or children to go into there. And for me, I saw it was an insurance thing, and insurance liability.
We had contractors out there pouring, and obviously they probably left it open.
Yeah, they didn't put it back
and
closed.
If I knew about that, we could have had
But
that
that's what he was
resolved.
talking about before, is to bring that stuff to him and not to a council meeting. You know?
I mean, you can still bring it. I want to, if there's a safety thing and a health thing, we
Okay.
want to take care of it.
I don't remember which one it was, A, B, C, D, or E, or F, but it was one of those I remember.
But the sign replacement was also on your board from what the hurricanes took out.
Dumping, there's been dumping on off of Morningside and Lakemont over there in that little round, it's like that, it's a curved road over there. Cracked concrete on 7th and Morningside on the water, has like a water pipe there, the whole thing was cracked. I believe that was cracked. I spoke with a resident over there, and I believe it was cracked during hurricane removal. I think it's something that we need to get to. Finally, the last report I have is that section of Morningside. Are you aware they have a HOA and there's a ton, like trees and stuff like that aren't being upkept? There's no trees. Actually, most of the trees are now missing in the median area as well. When you're coming in, I believe that was Ridgewood and Alpha. So when you come into that section there, there's supposed to be a bunch of trees, but during the hurricane, I guess they were all removed. And again, I mean, we're enforcing on certain communities for, making sure that we have trees and things like that. But then, yeah,
I'll just have to look to see if their development agreement required those. But with that said, according to Florida state statute, you need to go on and file a code complaint because I can't take your anonymous complaint. I need to actually have the address and a written record of that. So if you could do that, please, that'd be great. And we can look into
Really
it.
a code complaint, I guess, but, I mean, I'm not gonna.
I mean, it's a code violation if they're not maintaining the area. And so we can't do those necessarily anonymously because they have to have a right to the person that made the complaint against them.
Okay. I'm not going to be filing a complaint against that, so I'm not going to do that. I'm not doing that. I'm mentioning it, that's it. Okay, that's all that I have.
All right.
One other
Oh.
consideration for council. We've discussed tonight a lot of things. We've also mentioned the length of our hours. I'm personally don't have a problem with it to go to 2 scheduled twice a month meetings until we can get some of this stuff maybe behind us and looking a little bit better instead of, well, we got a workshop, but then we bring it all, we're crunching in these 3 and 4 hour meetings. I'd like to have them a little bit less and maybe spread our stuff out a little bit more. Now, I don't know how that's going to affect getting everything on the agenda, but didn't know how you guys felt about it.
July, we already got 3 meetings scheduled.
Right. I mean,
Yeah, 3 in July and 4 September, and we
workshops, but-
probably will have 2 all the way up till Montverde and Christmas.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
Usually that's when
we're busy.
we have to
Yeah.
slow it down. So
That's what I'm
We're
saying,
busy.
we're busy, and that was part of the thing under Part B, up and coming agendas. You know, we've got a lot, little time to get it. I just wanted to make sure that we're not letting things like, oh my gosh, we didn't know about this, and, you know, we've discussed, I think this has been positive tonight. I hope it's been for the community, but I got a lot out of it, a positive, so kudos to those who planned it. We did a good job, so.
I actually want to piggyback on something right there. The agenda. How can you walk me through how an agenda is created? Briefly, I don't have to go like. How does it? Well, I know you type it, obviously, but how does, well, like tonight's agenda, right? You have these items on here. How did you? Why
Sure,
did you put them on there? I guess.
Sure, it's I mean, today is just general discussion, so they are just either issues or things. You know, once in a while, it's good for town council to have a conversation. You brought up some of the issues. I want to put them on there. I put the one about, you know, the staff reports, just, you know, encourage one because I'm getting this feedback sometimes 2 weeks after stuff is happening. I want the feedback earlier so I can react to it. And so, you know, I just put concerns and things, but generally most of your regular meetings, it's the purpose of the meeting, according to charter, is to do the business of the town. And so as there's stuff we're statutorily required under timelines to do, such as land development stuff, where we have a strict timeline we have to follow, you have to go through the process, and or things that have a hearing, or stuff that's been on the board or you brought up, or it's or issues that we've had over time through planning, because we're trying to create the planning process. We've had issues with setbacks. So we try to work on those things, comp plans, state mandates. So we work through those things. Then generally, realize I work for you as a council, and until 3 of you affirmatively say yes, on certain things, I can't do those. And so when I need direction from a council on certain things, I have to put those on the agenda so I can get direction to go forward. So that's generally the makeup of the agendas. So if there's particular topics that council, I always try to work, if there's things, one, I try to resolve it, not necessarily take up council time, but there's certain topics you want to talk to council, like for instance the discussion strategic planning, and we ended up with the board where I know you want strategic planning, but on those things until, honestly, because sometimes I see this and I don't know what to do with that, I need 3 affirmative votes of like, put this on the agenda within the next 90 days, Paul, or I don't know what to do with some of that. And but that's generally why. So I think you guys could always bring up a thing, hey, can we put this as a discussion item for a future meeting? We could do those kind of things of like, or at the end of the agenda, just like, hey, would you mind putting this on a discussion item to see if there's something we want to work on later? And you're going to use your strategic plan is, this was kind of, our agendas have been busy. This was your opportunity to discuss to that plan, and if the council wanted to really move forward with a formal strategic plan process, and you could go as far as hiring an outside firm to help you do a strategic plan, then I would just need 3 votes, and I would need to look at it in the budget and possibly bring a budget amendment, or see if I can work it into the budget.
what I'm sort of looking for out of the strategic plan, I mean, again, it doesn't.
No, I'm just using that as an example. It has nothing to do with that. I'm just, you asked how to do it, so I'm just using that as an example.
I'm just trying to
Means
make sure
nothing.
that, I'm trying to get us onto that, what I feel that we need to be on that same page. And if maybe
Yeah.
I'm alone on that island, that's fine. I mean, but that's the reason I'm
Yeah.
asking for
So
that.
most of the stuff is because we're required to do it. You know, we have a budget amendment on the next one. We have a budget in July, you know, because those are things that in order for me to operate the town under your direction, I have to get direction. Anita, do you have any other thoughts or any comments on that?
There's a lot of different dates that have to be, you have to do it twice, you have to do it certain dates, you can't do it on the same day as the county meeting. It goes on the list, you know, and it's like, it's difficult to follow sometimes.
It is, and sometimes I bump things because if they need a second reading or we need more clarity because staff didn't get you everything you need, we have to put on another meetings. At some point, the agendas get so long, like, okay, push that. That actually, with the budget, you know, I kind of have it close, but I didn't have enough numbers, but we already got so many things on the budget. I'm like, you know, we need a full 2 hours to look at this, so I'm just going to put that in its own meeting. So I made that decision that we're just going to have a separate meeting just to go over the budget because of the time.
Maybe we should do, start at 5 o'clock.
And do a break in the middle.
No, start at 5.
One question, I'm
I just want to see
going to
everybody's
voice my
reaction.
opinion on this, is that I guess I should stay out of Publix because that's where all the problems develop, is at Publix. But people will come up to me and say, well, you did such and such a resolution, that was goofy. Who came up with that idea? Is that Paul? Is that Anita? Is that the mayor? Is that Sean? Did they get together and say, hey, we need a resolution for, and we're going, that's goofy. I'm like, well, no, Paul, let me tell you, this is how the structure goes. You, the voter, the mayor, and council, and then Paul, and he's at the direction of us. But they're saying, well, who comes up with these agendas? Why do we have, and you explained some of this tonight, which I think a lot of people haven't grasped. Hey, it's not just what we want to do, it's what DEP and St. John's Water Management and Lake County and all these other agencies that mingle within our lives on a daily basis. We don't grasp the depth of what they demand that we have to do, because you have to be in compliance, you have to be this, you have to, and that forces us, or primarily Paul, to stay on top of these things. And Anita, hey, this is a legal thing, we got to address this. Well, that was dumb. Why did we do that? This explains, I think, to people that hopefully tonight they'll be able to watch this and come away with it and say, well, I never knew that, I never knew that, I never knew that. Well, we just don't go out and say, hey, let's be evil, mean people, and say, we'll come up with a resolution or a, you know, whatever to affect your lives. There's a reason that we do it that way. And we're kind of on the bottom of the food chain. You know, it starts up top and somebody says, let's make everybody do that. You know, we've seen that with DEP. We've seen that with the expansion of the BMAP primarily. I mean, I stopped at St. John's Water Management up in Popka a couple weeks ago and have some contacts up there, and I said, hey, what's going on with the BMAP? Well, you know, we're going to expand them another 10%. That's what we're pushing for in the state. And it's like, okay, how much further do you push? When you push and then they say this is what you must do, can you force everybody underneath that to say jump? You know, we're jumping, and you're saying how high do we have to jump? I think it kind of clears some things out, hopefully tonight, to understand the process of how things work. It's not just you, and you decide, hey, let's go make the town's life more, you know, whatever you want to fill in the blank. There's a process behind it. I don't think most people understand that. And when you explain it to them, they kind of go, well, I never knew that. Well, that's why. So.
No, and I just want to add, I do put a lot of things on the agenda to get council's input, because I know you're talking to the residents on a regular basis. And, you know, under our form of government, the town manager has a lot of authority that I could exercise on some stuff that doesn't have to come for council, that I do bring it on, because I don't want to be leaving you in the dark or doing things and not letting the public comment on. I mean, there's been managers, I mean, they don't last long, but that building would have been torn down with a dozer before you showed up to the meeting tonight. I've seen those couple things in a little town. Obviously, that doesn't work. And, you know, we want to work together to solve our problems. You know, that comes that team thing. We're not always agreeing, but we want to work together to solve our problems. So I do put some agendas long, and I'll use an example. I went to Oakland to kind of look at their mower contract, and their agendas usually have 2 or 3 things on, but like their mowing contract took a year because it first went through 2 committees and this and that, and it was like, oh my, how did they get anything done? You know, and they don't. So it's challenging sometimes. So I do want to bring that information to you, give you your opportunity to comment on it, and then get, you know, a lot of things direction, and that's why I asked for, you know, are everybody okay with that, or give me a vote and we move forward with it.
Okay, so then I guess I'm going to ask to explain this like I'm 5 on this one, okay? The CRA, I'm just going to mention the CRA because it was brought up. Can you explain, and maybe I missed something, how did it get, and this isn't about good, bad, or anything, just to be clear, it's just something that, can you explain to me how that makes it from existing to being in front of us? Like, how do you get to that point?
Sure. Yeah, that's actually a perfect example and an easy one to explain. So throughout my tenure here, council has, I think, always encouraged and asked to be creative ways of making sure of how do we deal with our problems in town, our services, our roadways, our curbs, our sidewalks, and our storms. You know, look for grants. You know, bring us whatever thoughts you have in order to provide that, so we can provide those services to our citizens without increasing our millage. I mean, that's been kind of a give me, I think, from everybody that's been here. And the CRA is a tool that almost every town uses in Lake County, and almost every, you know, there's a lot of CRAs in there. And what we did is we brought it and we did a workshop and a presentation. Here's what a workshop is. That was 9 months to a year ago, maybe, and a workshop and a presentation. And we asked council, would you like to, because who wants to put a CRA together? You wouldn't believe the amount of staff time involved in that CRA. It was humongous. I mean, it just didn't show up. It was 9 months of putting together. So we did a workshop. You know, council's changed around since then. Obviously, we've done a workshop, spent an hour plus on it, went over it, the pros and the cons with it, and we put it together, brought it for council for approval, and you're right to do so. You made a decision at that time, you know, 2-2, not to move forward. So we presented, we put a workshop together for you with the staff and presentation, and but that was a direction of council to put that together, because, you know, we obviously spent probably 12 grand putting that together to bring before council. So those things, I don't want to spend the money if it's something council wants to do. Is that fair?
That works, thank you. That's what I was curious, just how it's sort of like that, like I said before, like how does, you know, the life of a bill, right? Like, how do we get to that point? And that's something that I
and you know, it's kind of one of those things, since we've done, you know, we continue to learn. I didn't recognize, but afterwards, I still was going through some CRAs, and within the CRA, I didn't know that to share at the meeting, but all the lawn maintenance and all that could be included as a part of the CRA to do kind of all the landscaping and everything we've done. I was like, wow, you know, I wish I knew that to tell you guys, because that's another huge expense for the town. So,
thanks, appreciate that.
All righty, everybody good? All right, make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against say nay. Nay.